Lachit, Ravinder, and everyone. So, welcome you all once again on the fifth lecture on Ind AS 115. So, friends, in the last lecture, we started the third step, which is determination of transaction price, and we understood the transaction price includes fixed consideration as well as variable consideration. And when we are estimating variable consideration, we are taking the figures or the numbers where we believe, I mean to say entity which is recognizing a revenue believes that the significant reversal will not occur in future. It means when the entity is expecting any variable consideration, the entity is estimating the variable consideration in a way considering all the facts and circumstances, right? So friends, the transaction price is computed in four ways. Number one, transaction price in case of variable consideration, transaction price in case of significant financing component, transaction price in case of non-cash consideration. So if there is a variable consideration, how will you identify the transaction price? So we talked about the expected value approach. You remember expected value approach, which is probability weighted approach, and most likely approach. Expected value approach is relevant when there are more outcome of an event, right? Then when there are multiple outcome of an event. And most likely approach is relevant when there is a binary outcome, means either it will happen or it will not happen, either it will be received or not received. So we talked about the variable consideration in detail. We discussed many questions on the variable consideration part, right? Many questions from ICAI study material as well as my Excel file questions you can see on the screen. So we have discussed all these aspects in the last class, my dear friends. Then we also covered the determination of transaction price in case of significant financing component, means when there is a difference of more than 1 year between the consideration received and the goods and services delivered. If the difference is more than 1 year, then whether entire consideration received is considered as revenue or there will be a significant financing component also. So what happened when there is an advance payment? What happened when there is a deferred payment and the difference is more than 1 year from the goods and services delivered? So in that case, right? So how that time value of money is going to be considered? So we discussed the aspect of what? We discussed the aspect of significant financing component, finance income and finance cost, interest income and interest cost. We discussed these aspects. If you see this example beautifully explains that what is my revenue recognition in case when the payment is getting upfront, when the payment is deferred, when the payment is in advance by 1 year, right? So let me more clarify this example. The company has sold goods worth rupees 10,000. There is a so in case of okay, recaptured, paying after 1 year, paying in advance after 1 year, already captured. No need to write anything above. Right, so we covered this aspect and we covered the aspect of, if you are giving some advance for securing the customer order, if you are retaining the money just for the purpose of ensuring the quality, then in that case, this concept of significant financing component will not exist. Then, my dear friends, there is a concept of non-cash consideration. Means if there is a barter, if you are paying the consideration in the form other than the cash, then how it will be treated. Okay, so we discussed in a situation where the company is not receiving money, the company is receiving goods and services or assets. So whatever company is receiving in exchange for selling the goods and services, whatever company is receiving, the fair value of those goods and services received, asset received, will be considered as a consideration, okay, right? So we discussed all these aspects. Now we are entering into the fourth concept and the last concept of step number 3, which is consideration payable to a customer. My dear friends, what is meant by consideration payable to a customer, right? For example, Ravinder is my student, okay? And let's say So Ravinder is my student and I am in the business of teaching. I am providing teaching services. I am a financial reporting teacher. So since Ravinder is my student is a very sophisticated word, but technically speaking, who is Ravinder to me? In the commercial world, who is Ravinder? What is my relationship with the Ravinder? What is my relationship with Ravinder? Customer. Ravinder is my customer and I am the service provider. I am recognizing revenue from the teaching services. Okay. And Ravinder is my customer. When he is paying me coaching fees, tuition fees, that is a revenue for me. Right? Correct? Okay. Now Ravinder is my favorite student. He is my favorite customer. So what happens? So Ravinder came to me and he wanted to have a FR coaching from me. So he told, sir, what is the price of FR coaching? What is the fees? I told 10,000 rupees. So he said, okay. But he is negotiating with me. So I told Ravinder, while I can't, reduce the fee, but you can help me in finalization of the material, right? You can help me in finalization of material, and for that I will pay you 1,000 rupees. For that I will pay you 1,000 rupees. So for example, you have to get the photocopies done, you have to compile the material, okay? So you have to do the draft, you have to do the formatting. So I am giving some task to Ravinder and I wish to pay him 1,000 rupees. Now, when I'm collecting money from Ravinder, who is Ravinder? Customer. Ravinder is my customer and he is paying me 10,000 rupees. At the same time, I mean to say, I'm also paying money back to Ravinder. How much I'm paying back to Ravinder, guys? How much I'm paying back to Ravinder? 1,000 rupees? Yes or no? मैं रविंदर को पे भी तो कर रहा हूं ना, कितना पे कर रहा हूं? मैं अपने कस्टमर को कितना पे कर रहा हूं? कैन यू प्लीज राइट ऑन द चैट बॉक्स? रचित, रोहन, यस, रविंदर, नीतीश, ज्योत्सना, how much I am paying to him? I am paying to him 1,000 rupees, right? So I am paying a consideration to Ravinder, who is my customer, 1,000 rupees. So this is known as a consideration payable to a customer, right? Consideration payable to a customer. When I said Ravinder, that Ravinder, I will pay you 1,000 rupees, this is a consideration payable to a customer. Have you understood the meaning of consideration payable to a customer? Have you understood the meaning of this consideration payable to a customer? Yes or no? Yes or no? Guys, yes or no? It's a very simple thing. If an entity which is recognizing a revenue, if an entity is paying some consideration back to the customer, if an entity is paying a consideration to the customer, it is known as consideration payable to the customer, right? Now, sir, then the question arises, sir, you have collected 10,000 rupees from Ravinder and you will be paying, or you are paying 1,000 rupees to Ravinder. Sir, 10,000 rupees, of course, in an ordinary course of business, you collected 10,000 rupees, but you are paying 1,000 rupees back to Ravinder. Sir, whether you will recognize revenue of 10,000 rupees or will you recognize revenue of 9,000 rupees? Guys, what is your answer? Whether as an entity, I will recognize my revenue for 10,000 rupees or I will recognize my revenue for 9,000 rupees. What is your answer? Whether I will recognize revenue, gross revenue of 10,000 rupees and 1,000 rupees of cost, or I will recognize a revenue of net revenue of 9,000 rupees. Now this is the question, and that is why this concept came into the picture. Whether transaction price would be 10,000 rupees with a cost of 1,000 rupees, or the transaction price will be net 9,000 rupees. This was the question, and this standard answers this question. What will be the transaction price? What will be considered as a revenue? I hope the problem statement is clear to each and every one of you. Yes or no? बताइए जितने बच्चे इस क्लास में हैं उन सबको प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट क्लियर है या नहीं है? ज्योत्सना, whether the problem statement is clear to you, I would appreciate if you can write on the chat box or if you can unmute and answer. The problem statement is clear, what this standard is answering. Yeah, so the question was whether we should recognize revenue for 10,000 rupees or net 9,000 rupees. Now Ind AS 115 says that to decide whether gross revenue will be recognized with a cost or net revenue will be recognized, you need to identify if the consideration payable to a customer results in no distinct goods and services, then the amount payable should be reduced from the revenue or the transaction price. Right? The amount payable should be reduced from the revenue or the transaction price. Means if an entity who is recognizing a revenue, if a service provider, supplier, vendor, if he is paying money back to the customer, right? And that customer is not providing any distinct goods and services, then what does it mean? Then it means that whatever this entity is paying back to the customer, it is more like a discount in nature. And hence the net revenue has to be recognized. The transaction price has to be amount collected minus amount payable to the customer. Right? मतलब मैं उसको क्यों पैसा दे रहा हूं? वैसे ही दे रहा हूं. मैं जो उसको पैसा दे रहा हूं उसके बदले में मुझे कुछ नहीं दे रहा, मतलब कोई डिस्टिंक्ट गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज नहीं दे रहा मुझे. इसका मतलब नेट मैंने क्या किया? नेट मैंने उसके साथ एक डिस्काउंट दिया, उसको मैंने उसके साथ अमाउंट कम कलेक्ट किया. राइट? डू यू अग्री विथ मी और यू डोंट अग्री विथ मी? Do you agree with me or you don't agree with me? Yeah. Now, sir, no distinct goods and services means there is no control on the goods and services which is transferred by the customer to the entity. Now, another example. So, another example could be, for example, Rohan is my student. So, I am in the business of teaching, and for that, normally I used to purchase stationery. Because I am a teacher, I have to buy some stationery. Okay, I used to purchase stationery. So, my dear friends, I collected 10,000 rupees from Rohan. Okay. And Rohan told me, sir, my father has a stationery shop. Okay. And we are the wholesalers. Okay. So, if the notebook, the stationery, pen, pencil, whatever you get in the at a value, at a price in the market, we provide less than 25% of it. We provide at a cheaper price of 25% discount. I said, oh, I don't know, Rohan, can you please get 2,000 rupees of stationery for me? Rohan told, okay, sir. So now Rohan has given me stationery worth 2,000 rupees and I have paid 2,000 rupees to Rohan, who is my customer. Friends, in this case, while I have collected 10,000 rupees from Rohan and I am paying him 2,000 rupees, but whether this 2,000 rupees is for a distinct goods and services or it is without any distinct goods and services, am I getting some good distinct goods and services from my customer or not? भाई आपका कस्टमर भी तो आपका वेंडर हो सकता है ना, या नहीं हो सकता? हो सकता है ना? So in this case, I am getting the distinct goods and services from my customer. He is giving me stationery. I am getting a control over the goods and services transferred to me. So in this case, tell me what should be my revenue, gross revenue with a cost of 2,000 rupees, or my revenue should be 8,000 rupees? Tell me. It should be gross revenue, because the revenue which I'm collecting from my profession is 10,000 rupees. What I'm paying my customer 2,000 rupees back, because I'm also becoming his customer for the purpose of purchase of stationery. You are absolutely right, Rohan. Gross revenue of 10,000 has to be recognized and cost of 2,000 rupee has to be recognized, right? So I hope you guys have understood the meaning of no distinct goods and services and the distinct goods and services. I hope you guys have understood the meaning of it. Okay. Yes. So friends, now let me write some example for you, real life example. Okay. And please let me know if you are able to understand this aspect or not. Again, a real life example from airline company, right? ABC airline collected 50,000 rupees from the customers for Delhi to Mumbai, okay. Now the departure time of the flight was 6 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m., but it got delayed by more than 4 hours, okay. And the customers have demanded compensation due to the loss incurred to them due to such on account of them on account of such delay on account of such delay okay? On account of such delay, right? On account of such delay, right? So the on account of such delay, the compensation paid was 10,000 rupees, 10,000 to such customers. Please advise in line with Ind AS 115 whether this compensation has to be recognized as an expense in the P&L, or it has to be netted off from the revenue, बताइए guys, answer me this question, answer me this. So first of all analysis, whether entity, whether ABC airline is getting some distinct goods and services from the customer for paying 10,000, from whether ABC airline is getting some distinct goods and services from the customer for paying 10,000 rupees. Yeah, no distinct goods and services. No, there is no distinct goods and service. Airline, flight was delayed and they are paying compensation. They are not getting any benefit from the customer, right? No, there is no distinct goods and services, no distinct goods and services, right? No distinct goods and services. Hence, revenue has to be netted off. Okay, means and net revenue of 40,000 has to be recognized. Means such expense, such compensation has to be netted off from the revenue, right? Net revenue of 40,000 has to be recognized. Okay, any doubt, any question, my dear friends? Any doubt, any question? Yes. Now, what happens if there is a distinct goods and services? What happens if there is a distinct goods and services? Now, Rohan is giving me stationery. I am paying him 2,000 rupees. Okay. So if there is a distinct goods and services, then gross revenue and cost needs to be recognized separately. If there is a distinct goods and services, then gross revenue and cost needs to be recognized separately. But you need to look at one aspect here. If there is a distinct goods and services, then whether consideration payable to a customer is equal to or less than fair value. When the consideration payable to a customer is equal to or less than the fair value, then the cost needs to be recognized for this amount. But consideration payable to a customer is more than the fair value, then the excess needs to be reduced from the transaction price. What does it mean? Let me explain with the help of an example. Right. So I collected 10,000 rupees from Rohan, and Rohan has provided me stationery worth 2,000 rupees, and I have paid him 2,000 rupees. So in this case, what is the gross revenue? What is the cost? 10,000 rupees the gross revenue, 2,000 rupees the cost, right? So my consideration payable to Rohan, my customer, is equal to the fair value of the stationery. So Rohan sell such goods at 2,000 rupees to anybody else, and he is also selling such goods at 2,000 rupees to me as well, right? So रोहन ने सोचा ही नहीं कि मेरे टीचर है मैं थोड़ा कम में बेचूं, उसने 2,000 रुपए में बेचा मुझे. Okay, so in that case I have recognized a cost of 2,000, gross revenue of 10,000 rupees. Now another example. So Rohan went to his father and he told, Alok sir has asked some stationery. Okay, so his father told, since he is your teacher, so give him 10% extra discount. Give him 10% extra discount. So the market value, the fair value of such stationery is 2,000 rupees. His father is collecting 2,000 rupees from everyone, right, for such set of stationery, but he is collecting 1,800 rupees from me. So consideration payable to customer, consideration payable to Rohan, consideration payable to a customer is less than the fair value of the stationery. So इसका मतलब रोहन मुझे डिस्काउंट दे रहा है, ठीक है, मैं कस्टमर को कम पे कर रहा हूं अपने कस्टमर को, that will be the cost to me. 1,800 rupees will be the cost to me. My revenue has to be 1,800 rupees only. My revenue has to be 1,800 rupees only. Now vice versa. Rohan is giving me stationery worth 2,000 rupees and I have paid him 2,500 rupees. I have paid him 2,500 rupees. What does it mean? I am paying more than the fair value of the distinct goods and services received to my customer. I am paying more than the fair. I am paying more than the fair. So my dear friends, what does it mean? थोड़ा दिमाग लगा के बताओ, लॉजिकल, कि मैंने 10,000 रुपए कलेक्ट किए और 2,000 चीज के बदले मैंने 2,500 रुपए वापस कर दिए, 2,500 रुपए वापस कर दिए. I have refunded 2,500 rupees. What does it mean, Rachit? Rupashri, Rohan, Jyotsna, Ravinder, what does it mean? क्या मतलब है इसका? And if you able to think, right, believe me, you don't need to learn FR. FR is very logical. This is how I used to, learn and remember the concept in my childhood days. भाई कुछ तो बताओ. You can unmute and you can speak also if you are able to unmute. So Rohan is saying, sir, 2,000 rupees for stationery, that is the fair value, and 500 rupees discount, and 500 rupees discount from the fees, right? It means I have given the extra discount to my customer, right? Means वो 10,000 rupees नहीं, 9,500 rupees मैं रोहन से कलेक्ट कर रहा हूं और 2,000 रुपए मैंने उसको दिए स्टेशनरी परचेज करने के लिए, right? Ravinder, you're absolutely right. reduced from transaction price, as I think you are absolutely right, Ravinder. Whatever you think, it will happen. And Rachit is saying excess discount over transaction price. You are absolutely right, Rachit. So in this case, whenever consideration payable to a customer is more than the fair value of the goods and services received, the excess has to be reduced from the transaction price. The excess has to be reduced from the transaction price. I hope this is clear to each and every one of you. Is it clear or clear? ये जो छोटे छोटे एग्जाम्पल थे, ये मेरे स्टूडेंट्स के, उससे आपको समझ आया या नहीं आया? Is it clear or not clear? Yes? Clear? Very good. Very good. So now you guys have understood the concept of consideration payable to a customer. When you are paying a consideration to the customer and you are not getting any distinct goods and services, then whatever you are paying, that has to be netted off from the revenue. No cost, revenue has to be netted off. But when you are paying to the customer and you are getting some distinct goods and services, then revenue has to be recognized at gross and cost needs to be recognized for the consideration payable to the customer. But if the consideration payable to the customer is equal to or less than the fair value of the distinct goods and services received, then whatever you are paying, that will be the cost and gross revenue needs to be recognized. But what happens when you are paying excess, when the consideration payable to customer is more than the fair value of the distinct goods and services received? It means you are also giving some discount to your customer. The extra, the excess needs to be reduced from the transaction price. It has to be netted off from the revenue, and to the extent of fair value, it has to be recognized as cost. Okay. Now let's again discuss an example. A Limited has sold a laptop to Ayush, a customer, for rupees 50,000 rupees. Okay. A Limited has sold laptop to Ayush, a customer, for rupees 50,000. The company has also bought a chair from Ayush at a consideration of rupees 10,000. Determine the transaction price in below circumstances. Case 1. The fair value of the chair is 12,000 rupees. Okay. So, this company A Limited has sold laptop to Ayush for 50,000 rupees, and company is also buying a chair from Ayush. Ayush's father has a furniture shop. So, this company is also buying a chair from Ayush at a consideration of 10,000 rupees. Determine the transaction price in below circumstances. All the circumstances are there. If you forget this, you will be able to remember when you see this simple Excel file. Yes or no? Whether this Excel file is simple or not simple. Whether it is simple or not simple. Right? All these examples are simple. Able to understand, my dear friends. Let me tell you with my real life practical, kind of experience. I am with Indigo Airlines, okay, as a financial reporting head. And these concepts, okay, so whatever you read, you need to apply in your practical life also when you get into the companies. And these concepts will help you in breaking and cracking the complex problems in your real life, right? These will help you in breaking the complex problems in your real life, okay? So, my dear friends, the fair value of the chair is 12,000 rupees. And what is the fair value of the chair is 12,000 rupees. So, what is the amount the company is paying to the customer for chair? 10,000 rupees. Consideration is 10,000 rupees. But fair value is 12,000 rupees. So, means consideration payable to a customer is less than the fair value of the goods and services received. Okay. Right. In this case, what will happen? Tell me. If the consideration payable is equal to or less than the fair value, what will happen? भाई मैं उससे ज्यादा का सामान, अपने कस्टमर से ज्यादा का सामान ले रहा हूं, बट पे कम कर रहा हूं, तो क्या ट्रीटमेंट होगा? What will be the treatment? Whatever I am paying, that has to be recognized as a cost. As simple as that. Whatever I am recognizing, that has to be recognized as a cost. The consideration payable to customer Ayush is for distinct goods and services, that is chair. Hence, revenue needs to be recognized at gross value and cost needs to be recognized separately for consideration paid to customer. In this case, the consideration paid to customer is equal to or less than in this case, the consideration payable to customer is equal to or less than the fair value of the goods and services received. Hence, what will happen? Hence, the cost will be actual amount of consideration paid. So in this case, what accounting entry will pass? Asset account debit 10,000, bank account debit 40,000 and revenue credit 50,000. So net 40,000 rupees received net. Okay. So you can pass alternate entry also. Alternate entry. बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट कितने से करें? बैंक अकाउंट को डेबिट 50,000 से कर लीजिए. ओके, बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट 50,000 टू रेवेन्यू कितने से करूं? रेवेन्यू को क्रेडिट तो मैं 50,000 से ही करूंगा ना. सेकंड एंट्री क्या पास करूंगा अगर मैंने ये एंट्री पास की? नाउ एक्सपेंस और एसेट अकाउंट डेबिट, राइट? सिंस इट इज अ चेयर तो इट इज अ पीपी. ओके, एक्सपेंस और एसेट अकाउंट डेबिट टू व्हाट? टू बैंक मैंने पे किया ना, टू बैंक क्रेडिट. This is the alternate entry, right? I hope this entry is clear to everyone. Okay, so what is my P&L impact? Or if it is an asset, of course it will not come to P&L 10,000. Revenue is 50,000 and cost is 10,000, right? Clear? No doubt, no problem. Now second scenario. The fair value of the chair is 7,000 rupees only. The fair value is 7,000 and I am paying 10,000 to my customer. क्या लग रहा है? दाल में कुछ काला है नहीं है? Whether some blackheads are there in the pulse or not? दाल में कुछ काला है या नहीं है? नहीं है या है? Ravinder, is there something fishy in this case or not? Yes, something fishy in this case, right? So I am getting distinct goods and services for 7,000 rupees, but I am paying 10,000 rupees. इसका मतलब क्या है? 3,000 रुपए का मैं डिस्काउंट दे रहा हूं ओवर एंड अबव अपने ट्रांजेक्शन प्राइस में. जो गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज मैंने बेचा है उसमें 3,000 रुपए का डिस्काउंट दे रहा हूं, राइट? सो हियर अगेन एनालिसिस. सी, few of you are saying na sir, how we will write the answer in examination? You have to write in this manner. The consideration payable to a customer, IUC is for distinct goods and services, that is chair. Hence revenue needs to be recognized at gross value and cost needs to be recognized separately for consideration payable to customer. In this case, consideration paid to customer is more than the fair value of the goods received. Hence the amount beyond fair value needs to be adjusted from gross revenue. Okay, from gross revenue, right? Expense oblique asset account debit 7,000 rupees. Bank account, of course, 40,000 because you have paid 10,000 rupees. So your revenue will be 47,000 rupees, right? Your revenue will be 47,000 rupees. Is that right or not right? Please tell me. सही है या नहीं है? सही है या नहीं है? है या नहीं है सही? Friends, let me know if you are not able to understand. If you have problem anywhere, please let me know. Yeah. So in this case, what we did, our alternate accounting entry, bank account debit to revenue, chair account debit 7,000, revenue debit 3,000 to bank 10,000, right? These are the alternate accounting entries. Your revenue has to be 47,000, the cost is 7,000. Okay, great. Now let's discuss a question from study material. Illustration number 52 from the consideration payable to a customer. Okay, yes. An entity that manufactures consumer goods enters into 1-year contract to sell goods to a customer that is a large global chain of retail store. An entity that manufactures consumer goods enters into a 1-year contract, right? to sell goods to a customer who is a large global chain of retail stores. Okay, like for example, PepsiCo is selling goods to Reliance Smart Bazaar. Okay, the customer commits to buy at least 15 crore of products during the year. So Reliance Smart Bazaar told PepsiCo that I will buy 15 crore rupees of cold drink from you. I will buy 15 crore rupees of cold drink from you. Okay, 15 crore rupees of cold drink from you. Okay, the contract also requires the entity to make a non-refundable payment of 1.5 crore to the customer at the inception of the contract. The contract also requires this PepsiCo will pay 1.5 crore to the customer at the inception of the contract. ये जो कस्टमर है ये 15 करोड़ का प्रोडक्ट खरीदेगा एक साल में, in 1 year, but this entity, right, has made a upfront payment to the customer for 1.5 crore rupees. The 1.5 crore rupees payment will compensate the customer for the changes it needs to make to itself to accommodate the entity's product. So why this 1.5 crore rupees payment is getting done? Because this customer has to, for storing the goods of this company, the customer has to make the adjustment to its almirahs, cupboards, shelves, right? And for that, this customer has to incur some expenses, and this company is helping this customer that please store my goods in your Reliance Smart Bazaar, right? And I am paying you 1.5 crore rupees upfront, right? The entity does not obtain control of any right to the customer, cupboard, almirah or shelves, right? Determine the transaction price. Before asking this question, have you understood this question? आपको सवाल समझ में आ गया? Have you understood this question? Very simple question, right? In English we have already discussed, in Hindi. So basically एक कंपनी ने 15 करोड़ रुपए का सामान बेचना है एक कस्टमर को. ये कंपनी पूरे साल में 15 करोड़ का सामान बेचेगी, लेकिन इस कंपनी ने 1.5 करोड़ रुपए अपफ्रंट कस्टमर को दे दिए डे 1 पे, राइट? क्यों दिए? ताकि कस्टमर अपना फर्नीचर एंड फिक्सचर को ठीक कर सके, अपने सेल्फ्स को ठीक कर सके, और ताकि इस कंपनी का सामान बेचने के लिए रखा जा सके, राइट? उसके लिए कंपनी ने 1.5 करोड़ रुपया दे दिया, और इस कंपनी का उसके सेल्फ्स पे कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है, राइट? कल को दूसरे का सामान भी रखेगा तो भी कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. सो सवाल यह है कि ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस क्या होगा? फ्रेंड्स, टेल मी व्हाट इज द ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइस? What is the transaction price? How revenue is going to be recognized? What accounting entry needs to be passed? What is the transaction price? So Rohan is saying, he has given an elaborative answer. Sir, entity is not getting any distinct goods and services for the payment of 1.5 crore rupees. Entity is not getting anything apart from sales contract. Of course, the contract has to happen by making 1.5 crore payment, so not receiving distinct goods and services. So 1.5 crore has to be netted off from the 15 crore rupees of revenue. You are absolutely right, Rohan. You are absolutely right. So net revenue 13.5 crore rupees has to be shown as a revenue from the sale of goods. You are absolutely right. Now, friends, tell me whether these scenarios are practical scenario or only board of studies study material scenario. क्या ये practical scenario है या नहीं है? Whether these scenarios are practical scenario where the entity is paying, where the entity is paying to its customer, right, upfront. The entity is making some upfront payment to the customer. So whether these are real life scenario or not? Yes, these are real life scenario, right? Have you heard about when a mall is constructed, shopping mall? So you know what these lessors are doing? For example, Big Bazaar, Reliance Smart Bazaar, Vijay Sales, Tata Chroma, when these big outlets are coming, they are giving lot of discount to these big outlets, they are also giving lease incentive. They are saying, okay, please open your store in our mall, and what we will do, we will pay you a lease incentive of 50 lakh rupee, or we will provide you a rent-free period of 1 year. Right? We'll not charge any money for the first 1 year, because I know you have to do the construction, renovation of your store, right? Or at times companies are even paying cash to the lessee. Why? The companies, these mall companies, these real estate companies are providing the incentives, are providing the money to their customer. I mean to say, these big outlet who are opening their store in that mall. Why? Because so that, they will be able to open their store in that mall, and when their store will open, there will be large footfall in that mall, and of course they will earn from the others. This small company will earn from others, right? So these all are the real life scenario, right? At times, if you go to the doctor, you must have seen the fridge, or you must have seen the shelves, and in the shelves a particular pharma company medicine was there, okay? Or it might not be there. Probably doctor is using that shelf for its own purposes. So what pharma companies are saying? Pharma companies are saying, sir, you have to promote our medicine, right? Doctor is saying, I don't have any place to promote your medicine and store your medicine. So pharma company is saying, no, no worry, sir. We will incur all the expenses to make the infra available for the promotion. So the point is, these all are very practical scenario. That is why in such scenarios, yes, you are absolutely right, Rohan. So that is why you need to look at, are you getting any distinct goods and services? Answer is yes. Then gross revenue. If you're not getting any distinct goods and services, then net revenue. So in this case analysis, the entity is collecting the consideration for rupees 15 crore and paying a consideration of 1.5 crore. In this case, the entity is not getting any control of any goods and services in lieu of paying a consideration of 1.5 crore. Hence, the consideration payable should be treated as a reduction in revenue in accordance with Ind AS 115. Okay. You're right. So consideration received 15 crore. Consideration paid 1.5 crore. Net revenue is 13.5 crore. My net revenue is 13.5 crore. Now, what is the total commitment of 1 year? What is the total commitment of 1 year, my dear friends? What is the total commitment of 1 year? पूरे 1 year का कमिटमेंट कितना है? सेल्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में लिखा था ना, 1 year में 15 करोड़ रुपीस के गुड्स सेल करेंगे. Total commitment of 1 year is 15 crore. So how the revenue is going to be recognized? Every year, every month, 15 crore divided by 12, right? So every month, revenue of 1.25 crore has to be recognized, 15 crore. The customer will pay 15 crore every month, 15 crore in a year, 1.25 crore every month. Now, net revenue is 13.5 crore. So every month, how much discount? While the payment has been made upfront, but how much discount is allocated to this 1.25 crore? The total payment is 1.5 crore divided by 12. This is coming at 1.5 crore. What is my net revenue? My net revenue is 1.125 crore every month. 1.125 crore every month. Friends, I hope this is clear to everyone. Any doubt, any problem? This is how your monthly revenue is going to be recognized, because commitment is for the 1 year. Commitment is on a monthly basis. This is how your monthly revenue is going to be recognized. Is that clear? Now, shall I also give you accounting entries for this? आपको accounting entry भी बताऊं मैं या छोड़ दूं? Accounting entry बताऊं या छोड़ दूं? Okay, you guys need to tell me the accounting entry. I'll not tell you the accounting entry. What will be the accounting entry on the day one? What will be the accounting entry on the day one at the time of upfront payment to the customer? सबसे पहले, this entity is paying to the customer 1.5 crore. What is the accounting entry? Of course, you will credit bank to bank. What you will debit? आप डेबिट क्या करोगे? आपने एंटिटी ने कस्टमर को 1.5 CR पे किया. Entity has paid 1.5 crore to the customer. Manish, what will be the accounting entry? मनीष डे वन पे अकाउंटिंग एंट्री क्या होगी? डे वन पे रेवेन्यू नहीं रिकॉग्नाइज होगा. रेवेन्यू हैज टू बी रिकॉग्नाइज एट द एंड ऑफ एवरी मंथ. द एंटिटी हैज पेड 1.5 करोड़. सो अकाउंटिंग एंट्री क्या होगी? कस्टमर अकाउंट डेबिट टू बैंक अकाउंट आप कस्टमर अकाउंट में डालोगे ना. कस्टमर अकाउंट डेबिट टू बैंक अकाउंट, डे वन अकाउंटिंग एंट्री. कस्टमर अकाउंट डेबिट टू बैंक अकाउंट. व्हेन यू विल पे डिस्काउंट? You will pay discount when you will make a sale. So first accounting entry, customer account debit to bank account at the time of upfront payment. Now, at the end of the first month and at the end of the first month and at the end of every month, at the end of the first month and at the end of every month, what will be the accounting entry? Now, at the end of the first month, the entity has to recognize a revenue. Entity has to receive the money from the customer. क्या accounting entry होगी? भाई एट द एंड ऑफ द फर्स्ट मंथ द कस्टमर विल पे द मनी टू द एंटिटी ना. बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट. कितने से बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट? कितने से? बैंक अकाउंट कितने से डेबिट होगा? 15 करोड़ से? नहीं, मंथ का तो 1.25 से होगा ना. होगा या नहीं होगा मंथ का 1.25 करोड़ से? सो बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट टू रेवेन्यू. बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट टू रेवेन्यू, राइट? So first of all, what accounting entry I'll pass? Customer account debit to revenue, right? Then revenue account debit to customer. Okay. So see, then आप बैंक की भी एंट्री पास करोगे, बैंक अकाउंट डेबिट टू कस्टमर. So let me write the accounting entry. First of all, the customer will pay the money. Bank account debit 1.25 crore. Bank account debit 1.25 crore to customer, right? I have credited my customer account. Now I will debit customer and credit revenue. What is the alternate entry? Bank to revenue भी कर सकता हूं मैं. Any challenge in these two accounting entry? Any challenge? Bank to customer, customer to revenue. I have recognized my revenue. ऊपर वाली एंट्री में customer to bank है. No revenue, no discount. Now, since I have made a sale, I have to pass the accounting entry of discount also. रेवेन्यू को डेबिट करूंगा, कस्टमर को क्रेडिट करूंगा. रेवेन्यू आई विल डेबिट, कस्टमर आई विल क्रेडिट, बिकॉज आई हैव डेबिटेड माय कस्टमर फॉर द मनी विच आई हैव पेड. ये कस्टमर अकाउंट जीरो कैसे होगा? हाउ दिस कस्टमर अकाउंट विल जीरो? हाउ दिस कस्टमर अकाउंट ऑफ 1.5 CR will become zero? How this customer account of 1.5 CR will become zero? How this customer account of 1.5 CR will become zero? Every month discount allocate कर देंगे, revenue to customer, revenue account debit to customer, right? This multiply by 12 is equal to 1.5 crore हो गया. Anyone who has any doubt in these accounting entries, friends, please tell me. If you have any doubt in this accounting entry, please let me know. अगर आपका कोई डाउट है तो प्लीज बताइए. Anyone who has any doubt in these accounting entries? Yes, no doubt. You are absolutely clear on this. Very good. Very good. You have understood consideration payable to a customer. Very well. Very good. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Now, let's go to the next concept. Let's go to the next concept of what? Next concept of what? Allocation of transaction price to various performance obligation. Now, my dear friends, step number 1, we understood identify the contract with the customer. Then we understood determine the performance obligation. You remember the goods and services has to be distinct in the context of goods and services at the goods and services level, and the goods and services has to be distinct at a contract level also. You remember this part we have discussed? Yes, determine the performance obligation, right of return concept, loyalty point. Loyalty point we discussed na in the performance obligation. Loyalty point we have also discussed. Yes. Yeah. We have also discussed the concept of loyalty point, material right of return, warranties. We discussed, not discussed. We discussed na. So we understood the concept of determination of performance obligation as well. Then we discuss how to determine the transaction price. We understood the transaction price in 4 scenarios. In case of variable consideration, in case of significant financing component, in case of non-cash consideration, in case of consideration payable to a customer. In case of consideration payable to a customer, okay? Right? In case of consideration payable to a customer. Okay. So friends, now we need to discuss how to, once you identify the transaction price, how to allocate the transaction price into multiple performance obligation. How many of you remember that helicopter view which I have covered in the first class? How many of you remember that helicopter view which I have covered in the first class? आपको याद है या नहीं है? वोल्टास का, वोल्टास लिमिटेड सोल्ड एयर कंडीशन इंस्टॉलेशन मेंटेनेंस स्टेबलाइजर, याद है आपको? उसमें मैंने आपको 5 स्टेप बताए थे. Okay. So friends, in this standard, the word standalone selling price, you must have heard. Standalone selling price. What is standalone selling price? It's a fair value, it's a market value. Okay. So instead of fair value, market value, the word standalone selling price has been used in this standard. Okay. So काम एक नाम अनेक. Okay. What is my transaction price? So we already discussed, my dear friends. Now this transaction price has to be allocated on the basis of standalone selling price of the performance obligation, right? Friends, if a company who is recognizing a revenue, a company who is selling goods and services, they have only single performance obligation. If a company has only a single performance obligation, whether the company has to allocate any transaction price into the performance obligation. अगर एक ही performance obligation है तो कोई allocation का कोई problem आएगा? Answer is no. नहीं आएगा ना? Answer is no. If there is only one performance obligation, whatever is the transaction price, it has to be charged to that performance obligation. That's all, right? But when the problem will arise, when there are multiple performance obligations. I am collecting upfront money today. When these automobile companies like Tata Motors, they are selling car, they are collecting money upfront from the customer, but they are selling car and they are also providing maintenance services, free services, right? So their performance obligation is not only ends with selling the car. It also requires providing the maintenance services. It also requires providing the services. Okay. The transaction price for a bundle of goods and services are rupees 1 lakh. These are distinct goods and services and separately identifiable in the contract and are separate performance obligation. Okay. The transaction price for a bundle of goods and services A, B, C, D, there are 4 products and the transaction price is 1 lakh. We are not aware that how much is for A, how much for B, how much for C, how much for D. These are distinct goods and services and all these A, B, C, D are distinct goods and services and separately identifiable in the contract, means these are distinct at a goods and services level as well as contract level, right? So these are distinct, that is why they are separate performance obligation. The standalone selling price is given in the question. The standalone selling price is 50, 40, 30, 20, 1 lakh 40,000. Determine the transaction price for each performance obligation. Help me here. How can I determine the transaction price for each performance obligation in this case? बताइए कैसे निकालूं? How can I determine the transaction price for each performance obligation in this case? Please help me understand. So Ravinder is saying, sir, 50 by 140 into 1 lakh. So Ravinder is saying, sir, allocate 1 lakh rupee into the ratio of 50 is to 40 is to 30 is to 20, right? This is what you are saying, Ravinder. And this is what you are also saying, Rohan. Absolutely right. You guys are absolutely right. Yes. So you have to allocate this 1 lakh rupee in the ratio of 50, 40, 30, 20. the total will come as a 1 lakh rupee only. So, sir, we are getting a product worth 1,40,000 rupees at 1 lakh rupee. What does it mean? What does it mean? 1,40,000 रुपए का सामान हमें 1 लाख रुपए में मिल रहा है, इसका क्या मतलब है? What does it mean? It means discount. It means we are getting a discount. It means we are getting a discount of 40,000 rupees. It means we are getting a discount of 40,000 rupees. It means we are getting a discount of 40,000 rupees. Okay, we are getting a discount of 40,000 rupees. Right? Is that clear? I hope it is clear to each one of you. We are getting a discount of 40,000. The customer is getting a discount of 40,000 rupees. So now, whether this 40,000 rupees discount has to be allocated to only product A, B, C or D or to each product, this 40,000 will be automatically allocated to each product. Okay, and how it will be allocated, let's see. Transaction price of 1 lakh in accordance with Ind AS 115 will be allocated in the ratio of standalone selling price of the performance obligation. Standalone selling price of the performance obligation, right? And how it is going to be allocated? Allocation of transaction price 1 lakh multiply by 50,000 divided by 1,40,000. 1 lakh multiply by 40 divided by 140. Okay, 1 lakh multiply by 30 divided by 140. 1 lakh multiply by 20 divided by 140. Okay, so this is what it is there. So now what is the discount? What is the discount? While you have to pass the net entry, you are not required to pass the discount entry, but I just want to show you that you can see this discount of 40,000 is allocated on each and every performance obligation by recognizing the revenue of 35, 714, 28, 21 and 14 to 86, right? Is that clear to everyone? Is that clear to everyone? So how the transaction price is allocated into the performance obligation? The transaction price has to be allocated on the basis of in the ratio of standalone selling price of the respective performance obligation. Anyone who has any doubt up to this level, because I will increase the complexity level of this allocation of transaction price. ये clear है आपको या नहीं है? Is that clear to everyone? Very good. Now, how to determine the standalone selling price of the performance obligation? Sir, कैसे निकाले performance obligation का price? What is a standalone selling price? A standalone selling price is like a fair value, market value. So how to determine the standalone selling price of the performance obligation? If standalone selling price is the observable price of the performance obligation, right? Standalone selling price is the observable price of the performance obligation. It is the fair value of that performance obligation, right? So when you have to determine the standalone selling price, you have to determine the fair value. You have to determine the fair value. Okay. So when you have to determine the standalone selling price, means you have to determine the fair value. If fair value is available for that performance obligation, then use the fair value as a standalone selling price. Clear? अगर fair value available है market में तो आप उसको use कर लीजिए. Sir, what happens if the fair value is not available then? If standalone selling price of the performance obligation is not identifiable or not available, in that case, what you need to do? In that case, you need to estimate the standalone selling price. भाई अगर अवेलेबल नहीं तो एस्टिमेट करना पड़ेगा ना. प्रोविजन फॉर ग्रेचुटी आप क्या करते हो? एस्टिमेट करते हो. क्यों करते हो? आपको क्या पता कितने लोग छोड़ के जाएंगे? आपको क्या पता आज लाइबिलिटी कितनी है? सो इफ समथिंग विच इज नॉट अवेलेबल, यू आर एस्टिमेटिंग दैट, राइट? Something which is not available, you are estimating. So friends, if standalone selling price of the performance obligation is not identifiable or not available, in that case, estimate the standalone selling price. In that case, estimate the standalone selling price. Estimate the standalone selling price. Right? Estimate the standalone selling price. Now, how to estimate the standalone selling price? How to estimate the standalone selling price? कैसे estimate करें standalone selling price को? Standard has helped you with the three approaches. If standalone selling price is given, very good. If it is available, fair value is available, very good. But sir, what happens if it is not available? Then you need to estimate. Sir, how to estimate? How to estimate? जैसे आपने variable consideration estimate किया था ना, probability weighted approach, which is expected value approach, most likely approach, वैसे ही few approaches are given in this step number 4 as well. And those approaches are Amma approach. Amma, who is Amma? Amma is Amma approach, right? Amma approach. Then another one is cost plus margin approach. Then the third one is residual approach. So Manish is asking a question, guys. Manish is asking in the last question, where we have collected 15 crore, where we have paid 1.5 crore. So can we debit discount instead of revenue for, can we debit discount instead of revenue for upfront payment? So Manish, first of all, let me clear. We have not, you know, we in the first day when we were paying a consideration to the customer, we have not touched any P&L item. We have just debited customer and we have credited bank. In subsequent entries, where at the end of every month I was collecting revenue, right? I was collecting revenue. So I have to debit my revenue because there are two aspects to it. The same ledger which you have debited, credited, the same ledger you have debit. Otherwise, how the netting off will be done? How the netting off will be done? In practical or real life, what happens, Manish? So whenever they are collecting the money, they are crediting revenue. But whenever they are, you know, giving a discount, they are debiting a ledger called discount. But the mapping of that ledger is happening in the grouping of revenue. Are you getting me? So रियल लाइफ में क्या होता है, रियल लाइफ में आपके पास मल्टीपल जीएल कोड्स होते हैं, जनरल लेजर कोड्स होते हैं, लेजर अकाउंट्स होते हैं मल्टीपल. सो आप क्या करते हो, सारा रेवेन्यू एक रेवेन्यू के जीएल कोड में डालते हो, डिस्काउंट को डिस्काउंट के जीएल कोड में डालते हो, लेकिन उसकी जो ग्रुपिंग होती है ना डिस्काउंट वाले लेजर की, उसकी ग्रुपिंग किसमें होती है? उसकी ग्रुपिंग होती है रेवेन्यू के अंदर. तो आपको जो रेवेन्यू दिखता है आपके P&L के फेस पे, आपके जो नोट्स में दिखता है वो नेट नेट दिखता है. But if from your examination perspective, what you need to do? From your examination perspective, you have to debit the or credit the same ledger. Okay, right? And you have to give the narration. For example, you have to give the narration here being discount allocated on a monthly basis for the upfront payment made to the customer. Okay, right? Okay, Manish. So Manish, I would request and I would request everyone that please ask these question just immediately after completion of the question. Otherwise, you know, the flow will break. So since you have asked this question after 10 minutes, after 10-15 minutes, okay, after completion of that topic, so the only problem is the flow will break. Okay. Yes. So friends, we understood we are discussing allocation of transaction price to various performance obligation, and we understood this transaction price has to be allocated on the ratio, in the ratio of the standalone selling price of each and every performance obligation. How to determine the standalone selling price of the performance obligation? Okay. Standalone selling price is the observable price of the performance obligation. It's a fair value of the performance obligation. If the fair value, if the standalone selling price is not identifiable, not determinable, then you have to estimate the standalone selling price. For estimating the standalone selling price, there are three approaches. Approach number one, AMMA approach, adjusted market assessment approach, which is known as AMMA approach. Cost plus margin approach, which is known as CPMA approach, CPMA approach. Adjusted market assessment approach, cost plus margin approach, and residual approach. These are the three approaches which is given in the standard. कौन-कौन से तीन approaches हैं? Please spell with me. Please tell with me. Okay. Oh, of course, you are not required to unmute. You have to speak. at your place only, adjusted market assessment approach, which is AMMA approach, cost plus margin approach, which is CPMA approach, and residual approach, which is RA approach, right? So we need to discuss this, all these three approaches one by one with the help of an example and a question. Okay, what is adjusted market assessment approach? So as the name suggests, अभी हमें पता नहीं क्या है ये, but as the name suggests, market assessment approach means a market is giving you some value. A market is giving you some value. Okay, market assessment approach. Market is giving you some value. Okay, and you need to adjust, that market value. You need to adjust that market value. Okay, adjusted market assessment approach means you need to adjust that market value. Okay, so while arriving at a price, you need to adjust the market value. Okay, so let's understand with the help of an example this adjusted market assessment approach. Okay, the entity is selling a package of goods and services, air condition, stabilizer, installation and maintenance services, and determine these four performance obligation, right? The entity is not selling stabilizers separately. This entity is never selling stabilizers separately. Whenever this entity is selling stabilizer, it is selling with the package. Okay, the competitors are selling the stabilizer at 5,000 rupees. The competitors are selling this stabilizer at 5,000 rupees. Okay, the competitors are selling the stabilizer at 5,000 rupees. This entity is not selling separate. Stabilizer independently. Okay, the entity estimates that the purchase cost of stabilizer may be more than 10% in the comparison to its competitor, right? So basically this entity is selling in the package only, and the competitors are selling stabilizer, so they are selling stabilizer in bulk. So this entity is estimating that my cost of stabilizer will be 10% higher than the cost of stabilizer to the competitor, right? So what is the standalone selling price? What is the standalone selling price of this stabilizer? Okay, tell me, with your limited knowledge and just knowing this word adjusted market assessment approach, what do you think? आपके हिसाब से क्या होना चाहिए स्टैंडअलोन सेलिंग प्राइस स्टेबलाइजर का? अगर इस एंटिटी के लिए कॉस्ट ज्यादा है तो डोंट यू थिंक स्टैंडअलोन सेलिंग प्राइस भी ज्यादा होगा? Friends, at least attempt. Doesn't matter right or wrong. Please try to attempt. At least attempt. Doesn't matter right or wrong. You need to attempt it. At least attempt it. Okay. At least attempt it. Friends, adjusted market assessment approach says that, right, in this case, the entity needs to estimate the SSP using adjusted market assessment approach. Hence, the standalone selling price may be 5,000 plus 10% of 5,000, which is 5,500, right? So market price has to be adjusted by 10%, right? So adjusted market assessment approach means probably that vendor is not selling that good separately. Probably that market is not selling the goods separately. The other market is selling the goods separately. Okay. So you need to take the market price and you need to adjust the market price with your facts and circumstances. Let's take another example. The company is selling a package of goods and services. There was one goods which is not sold by that company or not sold by the competitor of that company in that market, but it is sold in another market. It is not sold in Delhi NCR, it is sold in UP, Uttar Pradesh, right? So in Uttar Pradesh, the price, the market value of that product is 10,000 rupees, right? But if it has to be sold in Delhi NCR, so the cost will be higher in Delhi NCR, for example. So the cost will be 15% higher in Delhi NCR. So what you are doing, there could be a transportation cost, there could be taxes, there could be some other cost for the capital of India, in the capital of India. So what you are doing, you are taking a price from a different market and you are adjusting this different market price to take it to your market. Okay. So this is known as a adjusted market assessment approach. I hope it is clear to each and every one of you. Is that clear or not clear? Please tell me. Clear? So what we did in this case also, we took the price of the competitor, we do the price adjustment. Okay. Clear? Very good. Very good. Okay. Now cost plus margin approach. What is cost plus margin approach? Very simple. ये तो हिंदी में बता दीजिए. What is cost plus margin approach? What is my cost plus margin approach? Let's take an example. An entity is selling a package of goods and services, for example, air condition, stabilizer, installation and maintenance services. Okay. And the objective of the entity is to earn 20% on everything which is sold out. Okay. While the entity is not selling these goods and services separately, they are selling in the package. But of course, the entity is procuring the goods and services from some other suppliers. So the entity know the cost of each and every performance obligation, and the entity know the margin it always earns or it wants to earn, right? So the entity know the cost and entity know the margin. So what is my standalone selling price using the cost plus margin approach? What is my standalone selling price using the cost plus margin approach? Yeah, simple. What is the cost plus 20% margin? वही तो है. और क्या है? और क्या है? Let me give you a real life example. So have you purchased any electronics in your house? Have you purchased air condition? Have you purchased some other electronic goods? Have you got the mechanic from the company? Have you got the mechanic from the company free of cost for the installation, for the demonstration? क्या कभी कोई मैकेनिक आया इंस्टॉलेशन के लिए? Was it free of cost? Was it free of cost? मतलब जो पैसा आप देके आए हो उसी के अंदर था या अलग से पैसा दिया? It was free of cost. Yes. Yes. So now the mechanic which are coming, which are visiting your house and who are coming from these companies, whether these mechanics are those companies employees or the contractual employees or the contractual people. If you are getting a person from Samsung, right, O General, LG, Voltas, these are not the Voltas, O General, Samsung or LG employees. These are the contractual people. These companies have a contract with some set of mechanics, right? And they have an agreed rate. They said that for every installation, we'll pay you 400 rupees. We will pay you 400 rupees, right? But how they recognize revenue? Of course, when these people will come to your house and when these people will install, the company will book a cost of 400 rupees. But what cost the company, what revenue the company will book at the time of installation? भाई cost तो पता है 400 rupees. Cost तो पता है ना 400 rupees. Okay. So the company will book 400 plus margin. For example, the company believe that I have to collect 500 rupees from every customer. I have to earn a margin of 25%. So 400 plus 25%. Going by the cost plus margin approach, the company will recognize the revenue 400 plus 25%. I hope it is clear to each and every one of you. Now let's discuss one question again. So this is a question example. These examples are nothing, it's a question, right? AG Limited, Alok Garg Limited sold a software and also provide installation services to the customer. The entity does not provide installation service separately and always used to sell software and installation together. Both of these are distinct goods and services, and hence two separate performance obligation is there. The entity has engaged a software engineer who helps entity in installation of software on the customer premises. This engineer charges 5,000 rupees on every installation performed. Normally, the entity earns 20% margin on the goods and services delivered to the customer. Determine the standalone selling price of the installation services. बताइए, हेल्प कीजिए, इसका क्या होगा प्राइस? प्लीज हेल्प मी आउट हियर. So, you know the cost. Yes, you know the cost, you know the margin. Right? Of course, you are absolutely right. 5,000 plus margin. In this case, cost plus margin approach is appropriate as the entity knows the cost of the performance obligation and the margin in the business it expects. Hence, the standalone selling price is 5,000 plus 20% of 5,000, which is 6,000. Any question, anyone from Amma approach and the cost plus margin approach? Any question, my dear friends? किसी का कोई सवाल यहां तक? Any सवाल? Any problem? Any गिला? Any शिकवा? Yes. Any challenge? No? Thank you, Ravinder. Now let's come to the residual approach. Residual का मतलब क्या होता है? What is the Hindi meaning of residual? बचा खुचा. What is the Hindi meaning of residual? Please write on the chat box, everyone. What is the Hindi meaning of residual? What is the Hindi meaning of residual? Money says written bacha khucha. Ravinder said which resides in the end. Okay. Yes, you are absolutely right. Residual approach. Let's understand the residual approach. The entity is selling a package of three goods, A, B, and C for rupees 50,000. The entity is selling a package of three goods, A, B, and C for rupees 50,000. The entity used to sell B and C separately also, but always sold A with B and C in package. So the entity is selling a package of three goods, A, B, and C. Normally B and C are also sold separately, but A always comes with a package. A कभी भी अलग से नहीं बिकता, A package में ही आता है. The standalone selling price of B and C is 20,000 and 25,000 respectively. Determine the standalone selling price of A in this transaction. Tell me quickly. बताइए फटाफट. I need answer from everyone. Rupasri, can you please answer this question? Can you please answer this question? Jyotsna, can you please answer this question? Friends, the more you will answer, doesn't matter right or wrong, the more you will learn. आप जितना engage करोगे उतना आप सीखोगे. The more you will engage. Yes. Anyone who wants to answer? The question is, the entity is selling a package of three goods, A, B, and C, right, for rupees 50,000. But the entity used to sell B and C separately also. So package में भी B and C बिकता है और अलग से भी बिकता है. It is getting sold separately also, but always sold A with B and C in package. A is never sold separately. A is always sold in package. The standalone selling price of B and C is 20,000 and 25,000 respectively. Determine the standalone selling price of A in this case. Yes, what is the answer? Yes, many students have given the right answer. It is 5,000 rupees. And how they have arrived at it? Using the residual approach, the balancing figure will be A, right? And how it is arrived? 20,000 is the price of B, 25,000 is the price of C, and the total price is 50,000. So 50 minus 20 minus 25, it comes out at 50,000 minus 20, minus 25,000. It comes out at 5,000. It comes out at 50,000. Okay? 50,000. Sir, when both costs are given in question, cost to company for mechanic and mechanic own cost for installation service, then we will take which cost? Sir, when both costs are given, cost to company for mechanic and mechanic own cost, then you need to take cost to the company, okay? Because you are recognizing the revenue in the company's books and you will be recognizing the cost in the company's books only, na? So whatever is the cost to company, that will become the cost, and on that you will build a margin and you will get a revenue. Okay, right? So residual approach, amma approach, cost plus margin approach, have we understood? We haven't understood, my dear friends. Please tell me. Shall I go to the next level of the complexity? Shall I go to the next level of the complexity? Now, let me put more complexity to this allocation of transaction price. Now the real charm will come. Now the real pleasure will come. There are two important concepts in the allocation of transaction price. There are two important concepts. The important concept number one. Manish is asking, sir, if question says market price and also cost with margin, then sequence is applicable if question says market price or... So Manish, normally you should go with the sequence, normally, right? So let's say if the market price is given and some adjustment is given, you should use that, right? If the cost is given and the margin is given, you should use that. Residual approach is a residual approach. Residual approach is a residual approach. Residual approach is a last approach, okay? It is a last approach. Important concept, allocation of discount to performance obligation and allocation of various variable consideration to performance obligation. Friends, we are going to discuss two aspects here. Number one aspect, allocation of discount to the performance obligation and allocation of variable consideration to the performance obligation. Let's understand this part with the help of an example, okay? Allocation of discount to the performance obligation. What does it mean? The entity is selling a package of goods A, B and C together for rupees 15,000. There is a package of three goods A, B and C, and this package comes with a 15,000 rupees value. The entity is selling a package of goods A, B and C together for rupees 15,000. The entity is also selling a package of B and C for rupees 8,000. So package of ABC is 15,000 and the chota package, the small package of B and C at 8,000 rupees. Okay. Determine the transaction price of A, B and C separately so that revenue can be recognized on these performance obligations separately. The entity is selling a package of A, B, C together for rupees 15,000. The entity is also selling a package of B and C for 8,000. Determine the transaction price of A, B and C separately so that revenue can be recognized on these performance obligation. So assuming the standalone selling price, is given. For A it is 10,000, for B it is 8,000, for C it is 2,000. The total standalone selling price of the package is 20,000, which is given in the question, and the consideration received is 15,000. Have you understood the question? The entity is selling a package of goods and services for rupees 15,000. The entity is collecting a consideration of rupees 15,000. Okay. Yes. The entity is also selling. So the entity is selling package of 3 goods for 15,000, package of 2 goods for 8,000, and in this case the entity is collecting a consideration of 15,000 for the package of 3 goods, which is A, B and C, and the standalone selling price, the total standalone selling price is 20,000. Now you need to determine the transaction price for performance obligation A, B and C. How should we approach this question? Tell me. In the question, when the two packages are given, and you need to determine the transaction price, which is a discounted transaction price. Yes, you can see that the 20,000 rupees value of the package is getting at 15,000 rupees. it means it's a discounted price. So my dear friends, when there are two packages, there is a larger package, there is a smaller package. There is a larger package and there is a smaller package. Okay. In that case, whenever there are two packages, right, larger package and the smaller package, first of all, you will start with the smaller package. You will start with the smaller package. Okay. You start allocating the discount to the smaller package. You will start with the smallest unit first. Okay. So if we see the first package, the bigger package, A, B, and C, the transaction price is 15,000, standalone selling price is 20,000. What is the discount? 5,000. But when you get to the smaller package B and C, my transaction price is 8,000 given in the question, and what is my standalone selling price? 10,000. So my discount is 2,000 rupees. My discount is 2,000 rupees. Okay. My discount is 2,000 rupees. Are you clear on this? It means on the smaller package, the entity is giving a discount of 2,000 rupees. On the bigger package, the entity is giving a discount of 5,000 rupees. Is that clear? So first, for determining the allocated transaction price, the discount needs to be allocated first in the smallest bucket, then to the entire contract. Step number one. So what we will do in this case? What we will do in this case? क्या करें हम? What is my standalone selling price? My standalone selling price is given 8,000 and 2,000. दिया है या नहीं दिया है? Standalone selling price दिया है ना यहाँ पे 8,000 and 2,000. Now, what is my transaction price? 8,000. So I need to allocate 8,000 multiply by 8,000 divided by 10,000. 8,000 multiply by 2,000 divided by 10,000. 1,600. So now, what will be my revised standalone selling price? What is my revised price for ABC? So once I allocated the discount, I got the revised price for the smallest bucket. I got the revised standalone selling price for the smallest bucket. So now that will become my revised standalone selling price for the large bucket. So performance obligation A price is 10,000. Performance obligation B price is 6,400. It comes from here. And performance obligation C price is 1,600. So now the total standalone selling price become 18,000. Now I need to allocate the transaction price. What is my transaction price in this case? मेरा transaction price क्या है? What is my transaction price in this case? Yes, 15,000. You are right. For the bigger package, it is 15,000. So 15,000 multiply by 10 divided by 18. 15,000 multiply by 64 divided by 18. 15,000 multiply by 1,600 divided by 18. This is what it comes as a transaction price. So my revenue will be recognized when I will deliver performance obligation A. It is 8,333, 5,333, 1,333, 15,000. So friends, whenever there is a two packages available, two or more packages are available, you should start with the smallest unit of package. You will allocate the discount to the smallest unit of package, and that final price will become the standalone selling price for the larger bucket, larger package. How many of you have understood or how many of you have not understood this case? बताइए, आप में से कितनों को समझ में आया, कितनों को समझ नहीं आया? While it is very simple, it's not something like which you are not able to understand. Tell me मेरे प्यारे दोस्तों, समझ आया या नहीं आया? आया? Very good. Very good. Yes. Anyone else? I'm just waiting. Anyone else? I'm waiting for them. Yes or no? Yes? Okay. Great. Great. Now we will discuss the allocation of variable consideration. No, Manish, in this case, standalone selling price is given. Manish, residual approach is applicable. Residual approach is applicable when, Manish, the standalone selling price are not given. In this case, the standalone selling price of all three items are given. Na? You have to determine the transaction price in this case. Right? So how will we allocate the discount? See, The bigger package is the bigger package you are getting a discount of 5,000 rupees. The smaller package you are getting a discount of 2,000 rupees, right? And you can see eventually your transaction price of 6,400 and 1,600, your transaction price of 6,400 and 1,600 has become eventually 5333 and 1333, right? Correct? Okay, so friends, let's have a break, and after break we will discuss the allocation of variable consideration part. And with that, after that we'll discuss two questions, one or two questions in this aspect, and then step number 4 will be completed. Okay. Yes. So let's have a break. It's 8:31 now. We'll start at 8:45. Okay. Shall I start? I hope my Excel file is visible. Yes or no? Okay, now we are going to discuss the allocation of variable consideration to the performance obligation, the important part, right? So we discussed allocation of discount to the performance obligation. Means we'll start with the lowest unit, then we'll go through the bigger unit. Okay. Now, friends, what is allocation of variable consideration to the performance obligation? Let me explain you with the help of an example. So, who is the participant here? Let's say Jyotsna. Okay. Jyotsna wants to get her house constructed. Okay. So she has engaged with a contractor and she told that I want to give you a contract for construction of my house. That is number one. And of course, when you will construct, the number one is construction of house. Then the second one is the construction includes all renovations. Okay. And since this renovation includes lot of interior designer, decoration, right? And plumbing, electrical fitting, etc., etc. So Jyotsna is also giving him a contract of maintenance service, right? Maintenance service. So Jyotsna has entered into a contract with a contractor for the construction of her house for 50 lakh rupees, and she is also giving maintenance service to the same contractor for 1 lakh rupee per annum for 3 years. Okay. And she told, if you will construct my house before Diwali, I will pay you a bonus of 5 lakh rupees also. Okay. And this contractor has a good precedent. He has a well kind of established pattern that he will be able to deliver before Diwali. We are talking about the revenue recognition in the books of the contractor. First of all, tell me, in this case, how many performance obligations are there from the contractor perspective? Is there one performance obligation or is there two performance obligation? बताइए कितनी performance obligation है? There are two performance obligation, construction service and the maintenance service. There are two performance obligation, right? Rachit, there are two performance obligation, construction service and the maintenance service. Construction, once the house is over, the construction is over, the Jyotsna will enjoy living in that house, and she has given the maintenance contract also for the purpose of maintenance. ऐसा नहीं कि मेंटेनेंस नहीं होगी तब तक वो रह नहीं पाएंगी घर में, ऐसा नहीं है. Okay. So there are two performance obligation, right? Rachit, is that clear? So now 50 lakh rupee she has given for the construction contract. She is saying 50 lakh rupee I'll pay you for the construction and 1 lakh rupee per annum for 3 years I'll pay you for the AMC or so-called maintenance. AMC or so-called maintenance. Okay. So friends, then 5 lakh rupee bonus. Okay. She told, if you deliver before contracted date, so I will pay you 5 lakh rupee bonus. Now tell me, in this case, what is a fixed consideration? What is a variable consideration? What is the total transaction price? What is fixed consideration? What is variable consideration? Please tell me. How many performance obligation you told? 2. Now what is the total transaction price? What is the total transaction price? By 50 lakh rupee construction, 1 lakh multiply by 3 maintenance, 50 plus 3 plus 5 lakh bonus. 58 lakh rupees the total transaction price, yes or no? हाँ या ना? 58 lakh rupees the total transaction price. Now what is a fixed transaction price? What is a variable transaction price? What is a variable consideration? What is fixed consideration? What is fixed consideration? What is variable consideration? 53 lakh. So Manish, 50 lakh rupee for construction, 3 lakh rupee for maintenance, 53 lakh is the fixed consideration, 5 lakh is the variable consideration. The total The total transaction price is 58. Okay. Total transaction price is 58 lakh. Now, my dear friends, this variable consideration of 5 lakh rupee. Now, once the contractor will hand over the house to Jyotsna, right? So the first performance obligation of the construction service has got over, and now the maintenance service performance obligation will get over in 3-year period, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. So now question is, there is no any problem in the fixed consideration 50 lakh plus 3 lakh. Now the problem is how this 5 lakh rupee is going to be allocated in these two performance obligation. Whether this 5 lakh rupee is going to be allocated in this two performance obligation, that is my question number 1. अगर करना है तो कैसे करना है? If it is going to be allocated, then how it is going to be allocated? Friends, standard says that in a transaction price, in a series of transaction, in a package of a transaction, if there is a variable consideration has to be provided, variable consideration has to be accounted in the performance obligation to which it is associated, You are absolutely right, Manish. This incentive, this bonus is only for the construction, not for the maintenance, and hence the transaction price for construction will be 50 lakh fixed consideration, 5 lakh variable consideration. So 55 lakh transaction price is for construction, 3 lakh transaction price is for maintenance. This is what this standard says. So A Limited has entered into a contract with B for construction and maintenance service for 5 years for its house. A Limited has offered B that it will give him an incentive of 5 lakh rupee for early completion of construction of the house. B has a track record of early completion. So in this case, two performance obligation, construction, maintenance. Fixed consideration is there in both the cases, but variable consideration is applicable only in the construction phase, not in the maintenance phase. Okay. Not in the maintenance phase. Clear? Is that clear? Not clear? समझ आया नहीं आया? आ गया? पक्का? Okay. Let's discuss illustration number 56 from the ICAI material. Okay. An entity enters into a contract with a customer for two intellectual property licenses. Okay. License A and license B, which the entity determines to represent two performance obligations, each satisfied at a point in time. Right? Each satisfied at a point in time. The standalone selling price of license A and license B are 16 lakh and 20 lakh respectively. Standalone selling price of license A and license B is given 16 lakh, 20 lakh. The entity transfer license B at the inception of the contract and transfer license A 1 month later. So license B तो inception of the contract पे transfer कर दिया, license A जो है वो 1 महीने के बाद transfer किया. Okay. Case A. Now there are two situations given. Case A, the price stated in the contract for license A is a fixed amount of 16 lakh, and for license B the consideration is 3% of the customer's future sale of product that use license B. So the price of license A is fixed 16 lakh, but price for license B is given as a 3% of the customer future sales, means variable consideration that use license B. For purpose of allocation, the entity estimate the sale based royalties, that is the variable consideration, to be rupees 20 lakh. But variable consideration का estimate दे दिया 20 lakh. Allocate the transaction price. Now it is asking about allocating the transaction price. Case number B. Variable consideration allocated on the basis of standalone selling prices. So first let's discuss case A. Okay. In the case, the question is clear to you. क्वेश्चन में क्या बताया, एक एंटिटी है वो दो लाइसेंस सेल करती है, लाइसेंस ए लाइसेंस बी, एंड लाइसेंस बी को इमीडिएटली ट्रांसफर कर दिया, लाइसेंस ए 1 महीने के बाद सेल किया है, ट्रांसफर किया है. लाइसेंस ए एंड बी की जो स्टैंडअलोन सेलिंग प्राइस है 16 लाख और 20 लाख है. अब यहां पर ये बताया कि जो कंसिडरेशन है फॉर लाइसेंस ए इट इज 16 लाख, कंसिडरेशन फॉर लाइसेंस बी इज variable consideration which is determined at 20 lakh rupee. This is what it is given, and the question is asking about allocate the transaction price and determine the revenue to be recognized for each license and the contract liability if any. Okay, shall we solve this question? Okay, Now, this is given in the question. License A, 16 lakh rupee, and license A is delivered after 1 month. License B, 20 lakh rupee, it is delivered at the inception of the contract. Okay. Case A, license A will give this entity the sale. By selling this license A, the entity will get 16 lakh rupee, which is a fixed consideration. By selling license B, it is a sale based royalty. It is a variable consideration. It is estimated at 20 lakh rupee in the license B. So this variable consideration, whether this variable consideration is allocated to both or only to license B. भाई license B के लिए तो variable consideration है, दोनों में क्यों allocate करेंगे? Only to B. What is meaning of 3%? Just to confuse you guys, right? So they said whatever sales will happen, you will get a royalty of 3%. Okay, means variable consideration. Then they have given you the value of the variable consideration also. Okay. So now, in the case B, so we'll discuss case B later on. Okay. So now let's come to the case A. License A 16 lakh rupee, license B 20 lakh rupee. Total 36 lakh rupee. Okay. So some more information is given in the question. Let me see. Okay, case B, variable consideration allocated on the basis of standalone selling price. The price stated in the contract for license A is a fixed amount of 6 lakh, and for license B, the consideration is 5% of customer future sale of product that use license B. The entity estimate the sale based royalty is 30 lakh rupee. Here license A is transferred 3 months later on. The royalty due from customer's first month of the sale is 4 lakh rupee. Allocate the transaction price and determine the revenue to be recognized for each license in the contract liability, if any, right? So my dear friends, if I talk about case A, case A is pretty simple. You have to recognize 16 lakh rupee when the license A will be delivered, and you have to recognize 20 lakh rupee, which is variable consideration, at the time when this license B is transferred immediately. So this case A is very simple. Okay, very simple. Okay, and now let's discuss case B. It is saying that how much money they have received. It is saying the price stated in the contract for license A is a fixed amount. License A fixed consideration 6 lakh, license B 30 lakh rupee, right? So license A is sold 3 months later on, license B has been sold immediately. What is my total transaction price? 36 lakh rupee is my total transaction price. यहां तक कोई डाउट किसी को? यहां तक कोई डाउट? लाइसेंस ए और बी का स्टैंडअलोन सेलिंग प्राइस क्या है? 36 लाख रुपए. सी, if you see this question talks about the standalone selling price 16 lakh and 20 lakh, and this question has also given you the consideration. The consideration for license A is 6 lakh and license B is 30 lakh. And this 6 lakh rupee fixed consideration which is there, while it is for license A, okay, while it is for license A, but this license A is transferred for after 3 months, this license B is transferred initially. After looking at the transaction price of license A and B, and after looking at the standalone selling price of A and B, are you able to make out some conclusion? Should be recognized first, lower revenue should be recognized later on. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm talking about case B. Case A is pretty simple. I'm talking about the case B. When it is saying that the price stated in the contract for license is a fixed amount of 6 lakh. License B, it is variable consideration 30 lakh. Here license A is transferred 3 months later. The royalty due from the customer first month of sale. See, for license B, it is a royalty based consideration, na? Royalty based. So in the first month, the company has got 4 lakh rupee only. The company has got 4 lakh rupee. So the question is asking how the transaction price is allocated and what amount of revenue is going to be recognized. That is the question. So friends, if you look at this case, initially the company has received 6 lakh rupee. Initially, the company has received 6 lakh rupee, which is fixed contract, which is fixed consideration. Okay. So fixed consideration जो लिखा है ना सबसे पहले यहाँ पे, the price stated in the contract for license A is fixed amount of 6 lakh and for license B it is this much, right? Entity estimate this much, ये सब लिखा है ना. So अगर आप इस क्वेश्चन को देखो तो लाइसेंस ए का जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट प्राइस है वो लाइसेंस ए के स्टैंडअलोन सेलिंग प्राइस से काफी कम है, 10 लाख रुपए कम है. और लाइसेंस बी का जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट प्राइस है वो लाइसेंस बी के स्टैंडअलोन सेलिंग प्राइस से 10 लाख रुपए ज्यादा है. इसका मतलब when you look at this contract, look at this contract in the entirety. This means the variable consideration which belongs to license B does not belongs to license B. It belongs to the entire contract. It belongs to the entire contract. So how this revenue is going to be recognized? So first of all, we have received 6 lakh rupee. So what we will do? 6 lakh. There is a fixed consideration 6 lakh. 6 lakh multiplied by 16 divided by 36. 6 lakh multiply by 20 divided by 36. So this is my allocation of 6 lakh rupee. What is the accounting entry? Customer account debit license B to revenue from sale of license B. Okay, to revenue from sale of license B. तो ये वाला जो revenue है, being revenue recognized at the time of delivery of license B, assuming the entity has received 6 lakh rupee upfront and 4 lakh after 1 month. तो क्या होगा? Bank account debit 6 lakh to revenue from sale of license B 333 to contract liability 266667. You might be thinking, sir, why we have allocated 6 lakh rupee? Whether you are thinking or you're not thinking. So in this case, Manish and others, first of all, 6 lakh rupees is the fixed consideration, right? Means that amount has to be recognized as a revenue. Number two, if you see, there is a nexus. Nexus means there is a close relationship between A and B, where A price of license A has been downside by substantial amount and price of license B has been upside by substantial amount, right? इसका क्या मतलब है? इसका मतलब ये है, you need to see this contract as a entire in the entirety. You need to see the contract in the entirety as a one contract where there is a two performance obligation. Means this 6 lakh rupee is not only for license A, it is for the whole contract. This 30 lakh rupees is not for license B, it is for the whole contract, right? Variable consideration. So that is why, first of all, that is why. So question has confused you. If you see in the same question, what it says you, variable consideration allocated on the basis of standalone selling price. Case number B, read the caption of case number B. That is what it is saying, right? So we have allocated the fixed consideration in the ratio of their standalone selling price and we recognize the revenue at the time of sale of license B. And let's say if this 6 lakh rupee has been received also, so then what we'll do? Bank account debit by 6 lakh and the contract liability or deferred revenue by the amount of license A. Now the question says that after 1 month 4 lakh rupee have been received. So this 4 lakh rupee has been again allocated in the ratio of their standalone selling price. This divided by this divided by, multiply by this, divide by this, right? So what is my recognition of royalty revenue? Customer account debit to revenue from royalty of license B, because license A will be sold after 3 months. 3 months later, license A has been delivered. So what you will do? Customer account debit 4444, revenue from sale of license A, the first entry, right? Then revenue from royalty of license A, second entry, right? So this is what you need to pass the accounting entry. Okay. So friends, standard says that when you are allocating a transaction price, okay, you need to look at whether for one performance obligation, that transaction price is substantially lower and whether another performance obligation, the transaction price is substantially higher. If this is the case, then you have to see the consideration as the entire consideration. You have to see that you have to take the entire consideration as a consideration for both the performance obligation. Okay. Is that clear? Is that clear or not clear? समझ आया या नहीं आया? आया या नहीं आया? Yes or no? Yes. This variable consideration is also for A. This variable consideration is also for A. Let's discuss one more question on the allocation of. I hope my PPT is visible. Is it visible? Let's discuss one more question. Allocation of transaction price. The price mentioned in the purchase order, just a minute. Yes, this is the question. The price mentioned in the purchase order is INR 50 lakh for delivering a machine. This 50 lakh rupees should be allocated to the various performance obligation identified earlier on the basis of its standalone selling price. Okay. The standalone price at which the machinery is sold in the market is INR 48 lakhs. The standalone price at which the machinery is sold in the market is INR 48 lakh rupee. Okay. So price mentioned in the purchase order is 50 lakh rupee. 50 lakh has to be allocated on the various performance obligation. Standalone selling price of machine is 48 lakh rupee. Observable price for delivery, service and packaging is not available. The cost related information is as follows. So there is a packaging service, there is a delivery service, and there is a machine. The standalone selling price of machine is given, the consideration is given. So internal cost, packaging internal cost is 83,333 per machine. Delivery service per machine is 4,34,783. And this is the margin this entity is willing to pay. 20%, 15%. This margin market would be willing to pay. Means entity wants this margin. 20%, 15%. So with this, going by the cost plus margin approach, if you build 20% on 83,333, you will get a standalone selling price of 1 lakh rupee. Going by this, charging 15% on 434,783, you will be able to get this 5 lakh rupee. Okay. Going by the cost plus margin approach, you have a packaging value, packaging standalone selling price, and you have a delivery service standalone selling price. This question is a classic question about determining the transaction price of the performance obligation, then allocating the transaction price into the performance obligation. Now tell me how we will allocate this 50 lakh rupee in these standalone selling price. How do we allocate them? बताइए. So 48 lakh for machine. Okay. What is the total transaction price? 50 lakh. How many performance obligations are there? How many performance obligations are there? How many performance obligations are there? 3 performance obligation. What is the standalone selling price of the performance obligation? 48, 1:5. Right? 48, 1:5. These are the standalone selling price. So this standalone selling price of machine, was there. We have also identified the standalone selling price of delivery and packaging. The total package cost is 54 lakh. We are getting at 50 lakh rupee. So 50 lakh multiply by 48 divide by 54. 50 lakh multiply by 1 divide by 54. 50 lakh multiply by 5 divide by 54. This is how you will get the transaction price allocated. Manish, why you are saying 2 lakh in the ratio of 1:5? Manish, what is the first step? If you know the transaction price and you know 3 performance obligation, Manish, why you are applying the residual value approach? Why? So the residual value approach is the last approach, Manish. It is always not reflecting a right picture, Manish, because when you are getting 50 lakh rupee, the consideration, the transaction price is 50 lakh rupee, but the standalone selling price of machine is 48 lakh rupee. Don't you think some more discount has to be given also? When you are looking at the question is talking about, the question has given you the cost. The cost is 83,434. Almost 5.5 lakh is the cost to the company for the delivery and the packaging. and the company is receiving 50 lakh rupee. So don't you think the company is also giving some discount on the machine? Yeah. So it means if you deduct 50 lakh minus 48 lakh, you will say only 2 lakh rupee for packaging and delivery, whether it will reflect a right picture. क्या 2 लाख रुपए मेरा मशीन की डिलीवरी और पैकेजिंग की कॉस्ट है, क्या सही पिक्चर दिखा रहा है? नहीं, आपको खुद ही क्वेश्चन में गिवन, आपको क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ है, इट इज गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन, द कॉस्ट इज 5.5 lakh rupee and these are the margins. So first of all, before residual approach, you have to use amma approach or cost plus margin approach. Going by the cost plus margin, you have 1 lakh and 5 lakh. Now you have standalone selling price for all three, standalone selling price of all three, right? So when you allocate 50 lakh rupee in 48:1:5 ratio, see what amount you got. You allocated the revenue, you allocated the transaction price on machine as 44,44,444 only. You allocated 92,593 only. You allocated 462,963 only. Right? This is what you have allocated, my dear friend. This is what you have allocated. Okay? Is that clear? Clear, not clear? Yes? So this is how you need to allocate your transaction price. Okay? वो कब करते हैं? वो मनीष तब करते हैं जब आपके पास ना तो अम्मा अप्रोच से आप निकाल सकते हो, बिकॉज द मार्केट वैल्यू एंड एडजस्टमेंट इज नॉट गिवन, द कॉस्ट प्लस मार्जिन, ईदर मार्जिन इज नॉट गिवन, ईदर कॉस्ट इज नॉट गिवन, राइट? देन यू कैन गो विद द कॉस्ट प्लस अप्रोच. अदरवाइज तो यू हैव टू then you can go with the residual value approach. Otherwise you have to use either amma approach or cost plus margin approach. Okay, is that clear? Great, my dear friends. Now let's go to more questions. Let's go to more questions on this allocation of transaction price. Can I discuss these MCQs with all of you to check your knowledge? Yes. Okay. Okay. MCQ 1. Sorry. A company enters into a contract to provide product A and product B for a total consideration of 90 lakh rupee. So what is the total consideration? What is the transaction price? 90 lakh rupee. Their standalone price are 60 lakh and 40 lakh respectively. How should the transaction price be allocated? Give me the right answer quickly. What is the right answer? A, B, C, D. What is the right answer? A, B, C, D. So 90 lakh has to be allocated in the ratio of 6:4. Okay. So 54 lakh and 36 lakh will be the right answer. It will be the right answer. Okay. Ind AS 115 require allocation based on relative standalone selling prices. So 90 multiplied by 60/100 multiplied by 40/100. Observable standalone selling price. Good question. Entity A sells a mobile phone and 1 year service contract together for rupees 55,000. Together for 55,000. Okay. Now the mobile phone is regularly sold separately for 50,000 while the service contract is sold separately for 10,000. What amount of the transaction price should initially be allocated to the service contract? बताइए. Entity A sells mobile phone and 1 year service contract together for 55,000. The mobile phone is sold at 50. The service contract is sold at 10. What amount of the transaction price should initially be allocated to the service contract? बताइए क्या होगा? Tell me what is the right answer. B, 9167. How you have arrived at 9167? कैसे अराइव किया आपने 9167? Total standalone selling price is 60,000 rupees. Allocation to service contract 55,000 multiplied by 10 divided by 60. 9167. Right? So basically you have allocated 55,000 rupees in the ratio of 50:10. Okay. Now MCQ 3. Variable consideration. A contract contains two performance obligation. A contract contains two performance obligation, A and B. The transaction price includes variable consideration of 20 lakh rupee. The variable consideration relates specifically to performance obligation A, and the terms of the contract are consistent with the allocation criteria under Ind AS 115. Okay, so the variable consideration relates specifically to performance obligation A. Two performance obligations are there, A and B. The transaction price includes variable consideration of 20 lakh, and this variable consideration relates specifically to performance obligation A, and the terms of the contract are consistent with the allocation criteria under Ind AS 115. How should the variable consideration be allocated? बताइए कैसे allocate करें इसको? Entirely to A, entirely to B, allocated between A and B based on relative standalone selling price, recognized as revenue immediately. Tell me, how should we allocate? Manish is saying entirely to A. What about others? What about others? Yes, it has to be entirely to A. Although general principle is allocation based on relative standalone selling price, variable consideration may be allocated entirely to a specific performance obligation when the criteria in Ind AS 115 paragraph 85 are satisfied. Leave that. Okay. Whatever I have learned, whatever I have taught you, that is more than sufficient. Good question. An entity sells three products together for rupees 90 lakh. Their individual standalone selling prices are 50, 30, 40. 50, 30, 40. The entity normally sells these products. The entity normally sells these three products, right, together for rupees 90 lakh. The entity normally sells these three products together for rupees 90 lakh. How should the 30 lakh discount be allocated if there is no evidence that the discount relates specifically to any particular performance obligation? So what is the total price? 90 lakh. What is the standalone selling price? 50, 30, 40 means 1 crore 20 lakh. And these three products together sold for 30 lakh, sold for 90 lakh. How should this 30 lakh discount be allocated if there is no evidence that the discount relates specifically to any particular performance obligation? अब ये नहीं पता कौन सी परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन का डिस्काउंट है, बट 30 लाख का डिस्काउंट है, तो इसको कैसे एलोकेट करेंगे डिस्काउंट को? बताइए, हाउ विल यू एलोकेट दिस डिस्काउंट? सॉरी, सिंपल, 5:3:4. Manish, 5:3:4. So 90 lakh rupee you have to allocate in the ratio of 5:3:4. Whatever transaction price will come, standalone selling price minus transaction price will be the discount. Okay, so proportionately based on the relative standalone selling price. Where a discount does not meet the criteria for allocation of a specific performance obligation, it is allocated proportionately to all performance obligation based on their standalone selling price. Now, next question. An entity identifies two performance obligation with standalone selling price of 70 lakh and 30 lakh. Due to a significant financing component, the transaction price at contract inception is 95 lakh. Due to a significant financing component, the transaction price at contract inception is 95 lakh. Which amount should generally be used for allocating the transaction price? Which amount should generally be used for allocating the transaction price? Two performance obligations are there. Standalone selling price is 70 and 30. Due to a significant financing component, the transaction price at contract inception is 95 lakhs. What amount should generally be used for allocating the transaction price? 100 lakh, 95 lakh, 70 and 30 separately, and 5 lakh discount should always be allocated to the second performance obligation. What is the right answer? Of course, due to the significant financing component, whatever amount will come, we are not considering it as a revenue, we are considering it as a finance income, interest income. So 95 lakh, B is the right answer. The transaction price after considering the effect of significant financing component is allocated to the performance obligation based on their relative standalone selling price. Thus, obligation 1 is 95 multiplied by 70 by 100. Obligation B 95 multiplied by 30 by 100. Right? Okay. Is that clear? So step number 4 primarily revolves around the relative standalone selling price approach with a specific exception for discount and variable consideration under Ind AS 115. Friends, have you enjoyed these 5 MCQs, the examples, the question from the ICAI study material? Have you enjoyed it or you haven't enjoyed it? Have you understood the AMMA approach, cost plus margin approach, residual approach? Have you understood this entire step number 4? Yes or no? Yes? Clear? Have you understood the third step, step number 3, performance determination of transaction price, variable consideration, significant financing component, non-cash consideration, consideration payable to a customer? Have you understood all these aspects? Very good. Now, my dear friends, let me quickly summarize this step number 4 for all of you. And after this summarization, what I'll do, I'll go to the next part, some special situation. Next part of some special situations. Okay. Yes. So allocation of transaction price to various performance obligation. We discussed transaction price has to be allocated on the basis of standalone selling price. Okay. Standalone selling price, what is standalone selling price? It is a market value, it is a fair value. If you can identify the market value or fair value, it is a standalone selling price. But if you cannot identify, you need to estimate. How will you estimate? You have to 3 approaches. AMMA approach, cost plus margin approach, residual approach. Residual approach is the residual approach. You have to use the residual approach always at the end. Okay, we discussed about adjusted market assessment approach, cost plus margin approach, residual approach. You can see for every approach, I have given you the detailed example with the probable solution, right? Then we discussed how to allocate the discount into the performance obligation and how to allocate variable consideration to performance obligation. For example, when there is a larger package which is available, the smaller package which is available. So how will you identify the transaction price? How will you allocate the transaction price, right? So how will you allocate the discounts? We understood while allocating a discount to the performance obligation, first we have to give the discount to the smaller package, then we arrive at a standalone selling price. That revised price will become a standalone selling price for allocating a transaction price for the larger bucket. Okay, this we have done with the help of this example. Then we have discussed about the allocation of variable consideration to the performance obligation, that the variable consideration has to be allocated, means the revenue relating to variable consideration has to be recognized respect to that performance obligation which has been satisfied and which has been associated. The variable consideration has been associated with that performance obligation, right? This is what we have discussed, my dear friends. And this is the one of the question from the study material, and another question which we have discussed in the PPT is also from the study material, right? So this is what we have discussed, my dear friends. Now, before getting into this, let me discuss one of the special case, right? One of the special case, very important, bill and hold. Just a minute. Yes. Let me discuss one of the important case, right? बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया. व्हाट इज मीन बाय बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया? क्या मतलब होता है आपका बिल एंड होल्ड का मतलब क्या होता है? व्हाट इज मीन बाय बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया? कैन एनीवन टेल मी व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया? बता सकते हो बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया का मतलब क्या होता है? कैन यू हेल्प मी अंडरस्टैंड बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया फ्रेंड्स, या नहीं बताना चाहते आप? या कैन यू हेल्प मी अंडरस्टैंड बिल एंड होल्ड क्राइटेरिया? नहीं बताना? So basically you must have seen basically what happened. For example, you have purchased a machine from a supplier. Okay, you have purchased a machine from a supplier, and
you paid around 20 lakh rupee for the purchase of machine. You paid 20 lakh rupee. Now you went to the supplier and you told, dear supplier, I don't have a space to, keep this machine, and I will take this machine from you after 6 months. After 6 months, okay? So now the question is, Ravinder, you are absolutely right. You are not wrong. You are absolutely right. So the question is, the entity which is selling a machine, right? And on the request of the customer, the entity is keeping this machine in their warehouse, okay? Of course, for a significant period of time. It's not about a day or 2 hours or 3 hours, right? So normally, what my wife used to do. So when we go to the vegetable market, so of course, she used to purchase, because we are living in Delhi NCR. We are living in Gurgaon. So every week we go to the vegetable market. So she purchases tomato for, let's say, 3 kg, 4 kg. She purchases potato for 2 kg, 3 kg, onion 2, 3 kgs. So we buy in bulk. At times we used to go to vegetable market in 15 days, at times in 7 to 10 days. So she buy in bulk. So what she do normally? For example, she bought 4 kg of tomato. So she pay the price, okay, and she pays the price. She bought the 4 kg of tomato, and she keep that tomato with that vendor only. And she told, Bhaiya, I will take these tomatoes after 20 minutes, after 10 minutes, or after I'll finish my other stuff in the market. So that is okay, right? That we all used to do. But if there are significant, right, if there are significant hold criteria where where the entity is keeping those goods and services for the purpose of, on the request of the customer, then you need to look at whether this storage service, custodian service, holding service, whether this will be treated as a separate performance obligation or this will not be treated as a separate performance obligation. This is a question. So standard says that if goods have been sold at bill and hold criteria, then this hold has to be considered as a separate performance obligation, provided some condition needs to be satisfied. Provided some condition needs to be satisfied. What are those conditions? Condition number one, the reason must be substantive. The reason must be substantive means the reason must be there for holding those goods and services, for holding those goods with the supplier. The product must be identified separately, means the product has to be identified separately, means every time, always, somebody can identify, the vendor can identify that yes, this machine, this product belongs to that customer, right? The product currently must be ready for physical transfer. And of course, this has been held just on the request of the buyer, right? Otherwise, the product was readily available for the transfer. If the buyer would have told, okay, I'm taking my product along with me. So the vendor was okay. The product was available for the delivery. Okay. It's not like that. It's not like that product is under manufacturing. It is ready for the delivery. The product must be ready for delivery. Number 4, the entity should not have the ability to use the product or to direct it to another customer. Number 4, the entity does not have any ability to use that product, or it cannot sold this product to another customer. If these 4 conditions will be satisfied, then the entity has to record revenue on the basis of bill and hold arrangements, right? What are the 4 criteria? Criteria number 1, there has to be a reason. Criteria number 2, the product has to be separately identifiable. Number 3, the product should be ready for delivery. Number 4, the entity does not have any right to use that product or to sell that product to another party. I hope these 4 criterias are clear to you. If it is not clear to you, it will get cleared after discussing this illustration number 68. This is a special case, bill and hold arrangement, where the question may come for the purpose of recognition of revenue and identification of performance obligation. Okay, let's discuss this bill and hold arrangement with the help of this example. An entity enters into a contract with a customer on 1st April 20x1 for the sale of a machine and the spare part. For the sale of a machine and spare parts. Okay. The manufacturing lead time for the machine and spare part is 2 years. The manufacturing lead time for the machine and spare parts is 2 years. Okay. The manufacturing lead time. Upon completion of manufacturing, the entity demonstrates that the machine and spare parts meet the agreed upon specification in the contract. Upon completion of manufacturing, the entity demonstrates that the machine and spare part meet the agreed upon specification in the contract. The promise to transfer the machine and spare parts are distinct and result in two performance obligations that each will be satisfied at a point in time. The question has made you clear. The transfer of machine, the sale of the machine and the sale of spare parts are the two distinct performance obligation. Okay. And of course, if there's a two distinct goods and services, so these are the two separate performance obligations. On 31st March 2003 means the contract was happened in 1st April 20x1 and now it is talking about after 2 years. On 31st March 20x3, the customer pays for the machine and spare parts but only takes physical possession of the machine, although the customer inspect and accept the spare part. So on 31st March 20x3, the customer took the delivery of machine. The customer has also inspected the spare part, means spare part was readily available, but customer has not taken the delivery of spare part. The customer requests that the spare part should be stored at the entity's warehouse, this spare part provider's warehouse, because of its close proximity to the customer's factory. Customer ने बोला एंटिटी को कि आप अपने वेयरहाउस में रख लो स्पेयर पार्ट को, जब भी जरूरत होगी मैं ले लूंगा. The customer has legal title to the spare part and the parts can be identified as belonging to the customer. These spare parts are separately identifiable. It belongs to the customer. Entity cannot sell to another other party. Furthermore, the entity store the spare part in a separate section of its warehouse. It is separately identifiable. And the parts are ready for immediate shipment at the customer request. जैसे ही customer कहेगा ये ready for shipment है. The entity expects to hold the spare parts for 2 to 4 years. And the entity does not have ability to use the spare part or resell them to any other customer. So entity is expecting that they will hold this spare part to 2 to 4 years for the customer, and they are not able to sell this spare part to any other customer because they don't have the right. Okay. So even though they know that the customer will take the delivery after 2 to 4 years. Okay. How will the company recognize revenue for sale of machine and spare part? Is there any other performance obligation attached to the sale of goods? बताइए what is the answer? बताइए, there are only two performance obligation or there are more performance obligation? First of all, you need to answer 4 questions. Question number one. Whether the reason for bill and hold arrangement is given. Yes. Customer has specifically requested the entity to store goods in their warehouse owing to the close proximity of the customer's factory. Yes. Whether product must be identified separately. Yes. The spare part have been specified. The spare parts have been specifically identified and inspected by the customer. The product currently must be ready for physical transfer. Answer is yes. The spare parts are identified and segregated, therefore ready for delivery. The entity cannot have the ability to use the product or direct it to another customer. Answer is yes. The spare part have been segregated and cannot be redirected to any other customer. So the reason was substantive. The reason was given. The product is separately identifiable. The product is ready for immediate delivery and the entity cannot sell the product to the other customer or entity cannot use it. If these 4 conditions are satisfied, it means there is a third performance obligation also, and the name is custodian services. Custodian services. So my dear friends, in the facts provided above, the entity has made sale of 2 goods, machine and spare parts. whose control is transferred at a point in time. Additionally, company agrees to hold the spare parts for the customer for a period of 2 to 4 years, which is a separate performance obligation. Therefore, total transaction price shall be divided among 3 performance obligations: sale of machine, sale of spare part, and the custodial services for storing spare parts. Okay. So recognition of revenue for each of the 3 performance obligations will occur as follows. Sale of machine. Machine has been sold to the customer and physical possession as well as legal title passed on to the customer on 31st March X3. Accordingly, revenue from sale of machinery shall be recognized on 31st March X3. Sale of spare parts. The customer has made payment for the spare parts and the legal title has been passed to specifically identified goods, but such spares continue to be physically held by the entity. In this regard, the company shall evaluate if the revenue can recognize on bill and hold basis if all below criteria are met. Yes, all these criteria are met. So, company can recognize revenue for sale of spare part also on 31st March 20X3. Legal title is transferred. It was kept only on the request of the customer, separately identifiable. The customer has the legal title. Company cannot sell it to other customer. Means they have kept just on the behalf of the customer. So, the sale of spare part revenue is also recognized on the same day, 31st March X3. Now, custodian services, third performance obligation. Such services shall be given for a period of 2 to 4 years from 31st March 20X3. Where services are given uniformly and customer receives and consumes benefits simultaneously, revenue for such service shall be recognized on a straight line basis over a period of time. Right? So this is what it talks about, bill and hold arrangement. So my dear friends, we talked about bill and hold arrangement. Okay. Right. So we talked about the bill and hold arrangement. If these conditions will be satisfied, then you can say that the entity has to recognize revenue on the basis of bill and hold arrangement. Okay. Now, after this, we reach to, so basically we also talked about the special case, which is bill and hold arrangement, arrangements, right? So इसके बारे में भी हमने बात कर ली, ठीक है? Now let's move to the next part. Just a minute. Okay. Yes. Now the fifth part. So we understood it is a contract with the customer. We determine the performance obligation. We determine the transaction price. We allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation. Now the time has come to recognize the revenue. How to recognize the revenue? How to recognize the revenue, my dear friends? कैसे revenue को recognize करें? कैसे revenue को recognize करें? कैसे करें revenue को recognize? बताइए. Generally, if it is sale of goods, तो revenue को कैसे recognize करें? At a point in time. If it is services, then over a period of time. Yes, over a period of time. Correct. So, recognize revenue when the performance obligation are satisfied. When to recognize revenue? You have to recognize revenue when the performance obligation are satisfied. Then you need to recognize the revenue. For example, the entity has sold a machine and contract says that the installation is also responsibility of the entity. So the company is selling the machine and the company is providing the installation service also. So this installation is a very complex installation. Till the time the entity will not do the installation, the customer will not be able to use the product, use the machine. Means customer will not be benefited, customer will not be able to use the machine. Now my question is, in this case, when you will say that the entity's performance obligation are satisfied at the time of sale of machine or at the time of completing the installation. तो आप कब कहोगे कि परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन सेटिस्फाई हो गई है इस केस में? एट द टाइम ऑफ सेल ऑफ मशीन और एट द टाइम ऑफ कंप्लीशन ऑफ इंस्टॉलेशन. If you see, this installation is a complex installation which can be done by this entity only. The customer will not be able to use this machine if the entity will not do the installation. So this machine and installation, these two are not two separate performance obligation. There is only one performance obligation, that is installation, that is machine after installation. Okay, means entity will recognize revenue only after installation. Means when performance obligation will be considered as satisfied, when the benefit will be transferred to the customer, when the control will be transferred to the customer, when the control will be transferred to the customer. What is meant by control? When the customer is able to get the benefit. Okay, is that clear? So my dear friends, you need to recognize the revenue when the performance obligation are satisfied. When we will say performance obligation are satisfied, when the controls or benefits are transferred. Okay, right? So example, and the revenue has to be recognized upon satisfaction of the performance obligation, which can be at a point in time or which can be over a period of time. Okay, friends, you have seen that we spent a good time in step number 2 and step number 3. आपने देखा होगा हमने 3 क्लासेस में step number 2 and 3 कवर किया. Yes or no? Right? And if you see, in step number 4 and one part of step number 3 we have covered in this class, and we are also going on step number 5. So step number 2 and step number 3 were the largest step. Step number 1, 4 and 5 were the smallest step, right? Okay, so comparatively step number 5 is the smallest step. So the smallest one is step number 5, then the second smallest step number, step number 1 is smallest, step number 5 is second smallest, then step number 4, then of course your 3 and 2. Okay, the entity has sold a Skoda Kushaq car to the customer on 1st October 2024 with 5 free maintenance services every year. Suggest when the control is getting transferred and how the revenue is recognized for each performance obligation. कार की परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन कब सेटिस्फाई होगी? कार का रेवेन्यू कब रिकॉग्नाइज करोगे? एट अ पॉइंट इन टाइम और आफ्टर 5 years? The entity has sold a Skoda Kushaq car to the customer on 1st October 24 with 5 free maintenance services every year. Suggest when control is getting transferred and how the revenue is recognized for each performance obligation. जल्दी बताइए. car control is transferred at a point in time, that is on 1st October 2024, and this maintenance service control is transferred over a period of time, that is next 5 years. So car का जो भी allocated होगा, whatever transaction price is allocated to the car, it has to be recognized upfront. And for maintenance services, it has to be split into 5 parts. It has to be split into 5 years. So car revenue has to be recognized at a point in time. Maintenance revenue has to be recognized at over a period of time. So when you will say that performance obligation will be satisfied at the time when control is transferred to the customer. And when control is transferred to the customer, either at a point in time or over a period of time. For example, car के केस में at a point in time, maintenance services के केस में over a period of time. Right? Any doubt, any problem, any challenge up to this part? Friends, बताइए अभी तक. Have you found any challenge, any problem up to this level? Of course, I am starting this concept in this class, and of course, this concept will not be finished in this class only. We will be completing this concept in the next class with a lot of examples and the case studies. Okay, right? But yes, I am setting the context. Now, friends, over a period of time, when you will say that the revenue has to be recognized over a period of time, right? Of course, when the control is transferred over a period of time. But sir, any guidance is given in Ind AS 115? Yes, the guidance is given in Ind AS 115 for the over a period of time. When you will say that the control is transferred over a period of time, right? The guidance is given in Ind AS 115. What about at a point in time? So there is no guidance. Standard says that if the condition relating to over a period of time will not met, then control is considered to be transferred at a point in time, right? So negative guidance. अगर ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम की गाइडेंस को अप्लाई नहीं होती, अगर ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम की गाइडेंस सेटिस्फाई नहीं होती, तो एट अ पॉइंट इन टाइम माना जाएगा और रेवेन्यू एट अ पॉइंट इन टाइम रिकॉग्नाइज हो जाएगा. what is the guidance given in the standard for the over the period of time? When control will be considered to satisfied over a period of time? So what guidance is given? The control will be satisfied over a period of time. Please remember, when any of the condition will met. When any of the condition will met. Any of the condition. Condition number 1. The customer is simultaneously receiving and consuming the benefit of goods and services as the entity performs. The moment entity is delivering the goods and services, the customer is getting the benefit and consuming the goods and services. Newspaper agency, Hindustan Times, Times of India, on the daily basis they are publishing the newspaper and they are delivering the newspaper to the customer. Tell me whether the customer is also consuming the benefit simultaneously when these companies are delivering the newspaper on daily basis, or the customer is getting the benefit after 30 days when the customer will open all those 30 newspaper and read the news of 30 days. बताइए. Immediately, simultaneously. Security guard services, right? Security, group for securities, SIS securities, they are giving a security guard services to the companies. Okay, so whether company is getting the benefit or consuming the benefit simultaneously when the security guard services are performed or not? Of course simultaneously. क्या अगर मान लीजिए कि कभी सिक्योरिटी गार्ड सो गया और कंपनी में चोरी हो गई, तो 3 दिन के बाद क्या कंपनी उसको रिवर्स कर सकती है? नहीं कर सकती. मींस these are the perishable services, means these are the services which the entity, when the entity is transferring, the consumer is consuming. Electricity services, NDPL, Tata Power, they are distributing electricity. So tell me, when they are distributing electricity, when they are delivering electricity, whether customer is storing the electricity or the customer is consuming the electricity when it is supplied by the electricity companies. Immediately, simultaneously. Gym services, yoga services. So whether the customer is getting the benefit simultaneously, right, when the entity is performing, answer is yes. Have you understood or not understood? But car, the entity has sold a car to a customer. So if entity is selling a car to a customer, immediately the customer is getting a benefit, so at a point in time. So when the customer is simultaneously receiving and consuming the benefit of goods and services as the entity performs, you can say that the performance obligation is satisfied over a period of time. The performance obligation is satisfied over a period of time. Are you able to understand this with the help of these 4 examples? समझ आया या नहीं आया? आया? Clear in mind? Condition number 2. The customer control the asset as it is created or enhanced the benefit passed on to the customer. The customer control the asset. Manish is getting his house constructed. So construction was over. Now Manish has given the paint work to a contractor. Paint work. So the painter is visiting Manish house and they are painting. The house has 3 rooms and they have completed the paint of 1 room, right? So the painter has completed the paint of 1 room. The painter has completed the paint of the 2nd room, and the 3rd room paint was pending. The balcony, the washroom, kitchen paint was pending, but this contractors people have not come. वो लेबर आई नहीं. Okay, contractor people has not come. But tell me, whatever paint work has been completed, who is controlling the asset? Whether Manish is controlling the asset or contractor is controlling the asset. Manish is controlling the asset. The paint which is going on, this house is in the position of Manish. So if Manish will not pay, the contractor guys cannot say that whatever paint I have done, I have to just remove the paint or I have to make it bad. No. This is not in the control of the contractor. This is in the control of the Manish, right? So if the customer control the asset and as the entity performs, the benefit is getting passed on to the customer. Okay. Manish has given a construction contract to a contractor for 2 floors, ground floor and the first floor. The contractor has completed ground floor. Now tell me, if Manish will engage another construction worker or contractor, whether Manish will start from scratch or Manish will start from the first floor. Of course, he will start from first floor because this asset is in the control of Manish, customer, and as the entity has created the asset or performed, the customer has got the benefit. The customer has got the benefit. Okay. Customer has got the benefit. Right. Is that clear? Is that clear, my dear friends? क्लियर है या नहीं है? समझ आया या नहीं आया? Sir, sir, what could be the reverse example of this? For example, sir, for example, we are getting the construction of a furniture. Okay. And this furniture is getting constructed at the vendor house, at the vendor factory, at the contractor factory. Right. So in this case, the contractor has done the half work. Okay. So in that case, whether the contractor will say that the control is satisfied over a period of time if this furniture is in the control of the contractor, not in the control of a customer? No. Right. So what is the condition number 2? Condition number 2 is the customer should control the asset, and as it is created or enhanced, the customer is getting the benefit also. Right. For example, WIP construction, WIP construction, work in progress, paint work, etc. Okay. Is this clear? Not clear? Clear? Condition number 3. The entity's performance does not create the asset with alternative use, and the entity has a right to receive the consideration to the extent the work has been performed. India has given a contract to NASA for manufacturing a BrahMostra missile, right? And NASA is constructing this missile only for India, right? There is no alternative use. If India will deny that I will not take this missile, NASA will not be able to sell this missile to anyone else. Means this missile does not have any alternative use. Okay. And the contract says that if India will deny to purchase that missile from NASA, so the NASA has a right to receive the consideration to the extent the work has been performed. मतलब पहली बात, अगर एंटिटी ने कोई एसेट क्रिएट किया है, कोई गुड्स क्रिएट किए हैं जिसका कोई ऑल्टरनेटिव यूज नहीं है, मतलब अगर मेन कस्टमर ने मना कर दिया तो दूसरे कस्टमर को नहीं दे सकते. ओके. कोई ऑल्टरनेट यूज नहीं है. दूसरा, एंटिटी के पास राइट है कि जितना काम हो गया उतने पैसे मांग सकती है अगर उस कस्टमर ने मना कर दिया प्रोडक्ट लेने से. इज दैट क्लियर और नॉट क्लियर? सो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, if any of these 3 conditions will be satisfied, condition number 1, the customer is simultaneously receiving and consuming the benefit of goods and services as the entity performs. Condition number 2, the customer control the asset, and as the asset is created or enhanced, the customer is having the benefit. Condition number 3, the entity's performance of creating the asset or the goods does not create the asset with alternative use, and the entity has a right to receive the consideration to the extent the work has been performed, right? The work has been performed. Okay. Is that clear? Bullet train is constructed Ahmedabad to Mumbai now. Legal disputed for any farmer and apex court stop the construction such bullet train project, and revenue recognized up to completed work. How revenue recognized by the government? See, bullet train belongs to government only. If government is selling the bullet train to somebody else, let's take an example. Government has entered into a contract with Japanese government. Now Japanese government has sold the bullet train. So there is a contract between Indian government and the Japanese government, and Indian government has ordered for bullet train. So who is supplier? Japanese government. Who is consumer? Indian government. So now there is some dispute by farmer, and the apex court has stopped this project. Now Indian government is saying we will not take this bullet train. So then Japanese government will say that to whom I will sell this bullet train? I have manufactured this bullet train only for you guys, or 60% of the bullet train has been constructed. So please pay me to the extent of 60% amount. So Japanese government will recognize the revenue up to 60%. So over a period of time, right? So who will recognize the revenue? The vendor will recognize the revenue up to completed, right? Provided he will not be able to sell to anyone else, no alternative use. And the contract provides the right to receive money to the extent of work completed. Okay, so friends, these are the conditions. If any of these conditions will be satisfied, then we can say that revenue has to be recognized over a period of time. Control is given over a period of time. Performance obligation satisfied over a period of time. Otherwise, if no any condition will be satisfied, then at a point in time. In the next class, we will discuss how to measure the performance of progress of the contract, and all other aspects we'll discuss. And friends, now whatever we have discussed today, what we have covered consideration payable to the customer, right? In detail. And we took an example of Ravinder, we took the example of Rohan, right? So we took those examples. Then we have discussed the allocation of transaction price. We talked about the allocation of transaction price into the ratio of the standalone selling price, okay? And we talked about the fair value. If it is not identifiable, then we have to estimate. And we have to estimate using the three approach. कौन सी three approach? AMMA approach, adjusted market assessment approach, then CPMA approach, then cost plus margin approach, then residual value approach, because mother is the supreme power, you know. So AMMA approach is the first approach, adjusted market assessment approach, then cost plus margin approach, and residual approach is a bacha khucha approach, last approach, okay, residual approach, right? Then we talked about अगर कोई बड़ा पैकेज है और छोटा पैकेज है, राइट, हाउ टू अलोकेट द डिस्काउंट. If you have a big bucket, if you have a small bucket, then first you have to start with the small bucket. You have to allocate the discount in the small bucket. Then you have to arrive at a revised price. That revised price will become a standalone selling price for the big bucket. And now you need to identify the transaction price. You need to allocate the transaction price. We talked about those aspects. Then we talked about a special case, bill and hold arrangement, right? So somebody who is selling the goods are keeping the goods on the request of the customer. Four conditions should be satisfied. Condition number one, the reason has to be identified. क्यों रख रहे हैं हम उसके goods को? Number two, the goods should be separately identifiable, right? Number three, the legal title has to be transferred, means the goods are ready for immediate delivery. जब भी मनीष कहेगा तभी उसके वहां पे गुड्स पहुंच जाएंगे. Number four, the entity does not have a right to use those goods or to sell to the other customers. Okay, if these four conditions are satisfied, then you can say that bill and hold arrangement holds good. And of course, the holding services, storage services, custodian services will be considered as a separate performance obligation. Now, then we discussed, now everything is over. So how to recognize a revenue? Revenue has to be recognized when performance obligations are satisfied. When performance obligations are satisfied, when the control is transferred. When control is transferred, either at a point in time, जब घड़ी में कुछ बजेगा, at a point in time, at a specific time, or over a period of time, like I purchased the car, at a point in time I got the car, but Skoda has told me, Mr. Garg, I will give you service for 5 years. So this maintenance service will be recognized over a period of time. Okay. Then we discussed, standard has given you a guidance about the over the period of time, when you will say that the control is transferred over a period of time, when any of the three conditions will be satisfied. What are the three conditions? The customer is simultaneously receiving and consuming the benefit when the entity performs. न्यूज़पेपर, आप परसों का न्यूज़पेपर आज तो नहीं पढ़ते ना, ठीक है, रोटी वोटी पैक करने के लिए यूज में लेते हो, बट पढ़ते तो नहीं हो ना, राइट? मींस everyday newspaper, when it is delivered, the customer is reading the newspaper and getting the benefit. When Tata Power is distributing electricity, are you storing electricity? कल घर के 3 AC चलाऊंगा मैं? No. When the electricity is getting transferred, customer is using the electricity, right? So gym service, security guard service, आप किसी के यहाँ पे चोरी हो गई, सिक्योरिटी गार्ड सो रहा था, तो आप क्या कहोगे कि वापस से मैं पास्ट में जाता हूं, टाइम मशीन में बैठ के सिक्योरिटी गार्ड 2 रख लेता हूं और चोर को वापस से रिमाइंड कर देता हूं. इट इज नॉट अ वीसीआर. ये आपका कोई कैसेट थोड़ी है कि रिमाइंड करके पीछे गए और वापस आ गए. नो. So the point is, in these kind of cases, when the entity performs, the customer is getting the benefit. Okay, condition number one. Condition number two, the entity control the asset. Manish, the paint work which is going on in your house. So entity control the asset, and the customer is getting the benefit. So the customer hold the asset, not entity. The customer control the asset, and customer is getting benefit as the entity performs. Okay. Number 3, BrahMos missile, bullet train. So the entity create the asset which is only specific to a customer. If customer deny, the entity will not be able to sell to anyone. Number 2, the contract provides a right that this entity will get the money to the extent of the work performed. Right. This is what we have covered today. Thank you so much. And now I'll hand over to Shilpa ma'am. She is there. Right. I hope you guys have enjoyed the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And good morning, students. Students, yesterday I was checking the feedback form and I found that many students are not filling the feedback form session wise. I request once again everybody that please fill the form session wise. Last time when I requested, few people were, Ravinder, you had not filled, still you have not filled for last session also. So I request once again that please fill the form for every session. For every session, we need a feedback form, and we also request everybody to, in case you have any suggestions for further improvement, then do it. Ravinder, you will fill the form, but once the session is over, you are filling for the next session, na? Not for the previous sessions. So I request you to just take 2 minutes. It is not going to be very difficult to fill it. It's only a click yes, no rating. Only last question is an open-ended question. Na? So please fill the form because that will help us to understand which more topics you want, what kind of expectations you have, and how to satisfy them and how to work on that. Okay. And one more thing, students, with on this open-ended question where it is given in the feedback form, it is not only that you have to give the feedback for the LVC, where you feel that even the form you find it lengthy or difficult, you can mention that also. Besides that, you can also mention what more you want from Board of Studies. Okay, we can just have that also. Okay. Any other query which you have, anything? And hope everybody has joined that WhatsApp group. Josna, are you there in the WhatsApp group? Viewers WhatsApp group for final level?
No, not yet, ma'am. I'll join.
Okay,
I
we'll
don't
share
have
the
the
link.
link.
Wait, we
Yeah,
are
sure.
sharing the link. We are sharing the link to you, and from that link you can join that WhatsApp. Just a minute.
Sure, ma'am.
I will. You'll find that in a minute. You'll find that in the chat box. Just finally. For all, for all. Josna, see in the chat box we have sent the link of WhatsApp group. Now, Ravinder, you are there in that WhatsApp group, isn't it? Ravinder, Manish. Okay, good, great. Josna, you can also join it. Huh? Now, any other suggestion which you want to speak right now, you can unmute yourself and talk to me.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, in the study material,
Hmm.
there is all questions given in study material is dark mode. Can we light mode because eyes is very
I understand. This was the complaint which we have received from many students. Students, this time we changed the printer, na, so printing quality was not up to the mark. But we have taken care of this, and the material which we are revising for May 2027 onwards, we are taking care of that. Printing should not be dark, and also that your flow charts. Some students requested flow charts when it comes when they download from the website, they get it very dark. So we are trying to make it of lighter color also. So both the aspects we are taking care of. Any other thing you want us to know? Good, Ravinder, you have filled the form, and I request to do it for everything. See, it took only 2 to 3 minutes. Na? We can do that for every session. Any other query you have, just you can unmute yourself and talk to me. This is good opportunity for you all to just connect with us. So any other query you have, you can talk to us. By that time, technical team, we can, Sanket ji, you can stop that live जो streaming है आप बंद कर दीजिए. बच्चे बात करना चाहेंगे तो कर लेंगे. Sanket ji, you can just stop that live streaming.